All right, you and I are watching as this girl challenges him, while Eyes claims Tran's real edge isn't mana. It is his insane talent for breaking down and mastering complex spells faster than anyone alive. Mesa decides to test him with her nature magic. Vines explode from the earth, tossing massive ships into the air like they are toys. But after just one look, Tran touches the soil. He deciphers the spell instantly, sprouting identical vines with ease. Mesa is stunned, but our lead is not finished. He switches gears to animal control, summoning a simple house rat. Then he casts a dark, twisted hex that makes the creature rot away instantly. Mesa tries to replicate the decay, but despite her massive mana, the logic of the spell eludes her. When she finally forces the magic to work, the price is far too heavy. Her strength vanishes, and the high and mighty princess collapses right there in the dirt. Rewind 8 years back, when a 10-year-old Tran first realized he was actually special. He was just at home, playing around with his strange powers. Objects were levitating everywhere just as his mother walked through the door. She doesn't cheer for him. Instead, she snaps, telling him to shut it down and never do it again. Her voice softens as she asks a heavy question. Does he still want to live with her for a long time? Tran says yes without hesitation, since he wants to stay by her side. She makes him swear to bury his abilities and never use them from that day on. He is never to show his magic in front of another living soul. A confused Tran asks why he has to hide who he really is. She brings up the old tales of nobles and knights, and he nods, knowing them by heart. Essentially, anyone born with this spark is called a wizard, whether they carry a sword or a noble title. But nobles are the direct heirs of the divine Freyans, the gods who once descended to save humanity from the brink. As for knights, they are descendants of nobles whose bloodlines eventually mixed with common humans. That's why a massive social gap exists between them. The truth is, Tran must hide because he inherited his powers from his father, a simple knight. She explains that the world is full of cruel nobles who view knights as nothing more than disposable slaves. She begs him to keep his identity as a wizard a complete and total secret. 8 years have passed, and Tran still holds onto that promise with everything he has. He has no desire to step into the spotlight or reveal what he can actually do. In fact, he's perfectly happy, never leaving his mountain home for the village below. Let's head down to the village, where kids are playing wizard versus monster, until the local favorite, Grandpa Robus, arrives. One little boy asks what it takes to become a powerful wizard, but the old man tells him it's not a path you can just choose. Robus explains that wizards are the peak of humanity, rulers who look down from the highest realms. They are the chosen nobles and knights who were born with the mysterious gifts of their powerful ancestors. Which means these two ordinary kids are unfortunately out of luck. A villager standing nearby is shocked that the old man would be so heartless with the children. He then changes the subject, mentioning rumors of a terrifying monster that just appeared nearby. Robus confirms the news, saying a local man named Rob barely escaped the beast last night. They say it was shrouded in pitch-black shadows, a massive leopard as big as a whole house. But Robus tells them not to worry. The village chief is already on his way to the city to hire a wizard, and he will definitely bring one back so this monster can finally be killed off. Everyone lets out a huge sigh of relief, while one of the neighbors warns the children they are strictly forbidden from entering the forest until the threat is finally taken care of. See, normal people trying to fight monsters is basically a suicide mission. They need some real magic power. A villager asks Robus if everyone knows the plan, and he confirms that the word has spread. But then someone points out a potential problem. Does that shepherd on the hill, Tran, actually know? Cut to the hillside, where Tran is completely vibing, using a literal sheep as a fluffy pillow. Staring up at the blue sky, he starts complaining about how boring his life is. It is just the same old view, day in and day out. He lets out a massive, bored sigh, joking that he is going to forget how to speak if things do not get interesting soon. Just then, Robus shows up and starts talking trash, mocking him for sleeping before the sun has even gone down yet. Tran straight up ignores the old man like he is not even there, telling him to move because he is blocking the sun. Robus is absolutely fuming at such a total lack of manners, and asks if Tran is still bitter about that incident that happened between them in the past. See, after Tran's mother passed away, Robus tried to pull a fast one and claim the family sheep for the village, not holding anything back. Tran makes it crystal clear that he is definitely still holding that grudge, big time. He mentions that he is not generous enough to just share his mother's inheritance with people like him. On top of that, he tells Robus they are definitely not friends, so asking how he is doing is not really necessary. He basically tells the old man to say what he came for and then get lost already. Robus is ready to blow a fuse, but one look at Tran's cold expression makes him think twice. Finally, the old guy drops the act and gets serious, explaining that a dangerous monster has been spotted nearby. He starts hyping up just how massive and terrifying this beast really is. Tran does not even flinch. Robus is shocked that he is not terrified, considering he is basically the first target in the whole village. Robus admits the kid is insanely brave, even though he has no idea where that courage comes from. Anyway, he lets him know the chief is already in the city to request a wizard to come help. He urges Tran to be careful, claiming that he is only worried about his safety. Honestly, Tran calls him out instantly. He knows the old man is not actually worried about him, he is worried about the flock. Robus is about to lose it after hearing that comeback, but Tran tells him to beat it since he has clearly said everything he needed to say. He even starts trash talking, complaining that the old guy's breath is absolutely lethal. Robus just slinks away, totally defeated. Let's talk monsters. These things are basically wild beasts packed with insane magical power. Think of them as animal wizards. They are in a whole different league. Tran is actually pretty hyped to see a real wizard, but at the same time, he is a bit skeptical. He wonders if a high-level wizard would even bother showing up to help a tiny, rural village like this one. Regardless, he is curious to see what they can do and exactly how much power they actually have. Suddenly, Tran catches a sharp metallic scent in the air. Blood. He starts following the trail. It does not take long before he finds the gruesome remains of the old man who was just warning him to stay safe. All right, let's dive in. He's been shredded like paper, and Tran is stunned. The old man died first while trying to warn him. Tran observes the body, his face cold and expressionless. This wasn't just some wild animal attack. It was definitely a monster's work. Before he can finish the thought, the culprit bursts from the forest, looking exactly like the legends. It is huge, terrifying, and drenched in a dark aura, a total nightmare. When it comes to monsters, they are unstoppable beasts that normal humans shouldn't even try to face. Rob's son hears this and figures the village is doomed. But his dad is certain the wizard will handle it. He tells the kid the wizard won't lose, because someone like him can finish off a monster using only a single word. Tran stands before the monster. Zero fear, he simply looks at it and calmly says, "Die." A huge wave slams it. It flies back, yet the monster seems completely unfazed. Tran stays silent, his opening move just failed. As he thinks, the monster suddenly lunges. He commands it to stop, and the beast barely misses him as it lunges past. Tran can't believe both command words failed. This monster is far more resistant than he expected. And then, in a flash, the monster roars back for another strike, but Tran leaps away, finally deciding it is time to get serious. He switches to his shepherd's style. He whips out his sling, loads a stone, and uses magic to harden it before launching it at the beast. It screams toward the target. Another command, faster, and the projectile accelerates with terrifying speed. Pierce through, he orders. A massive explosion of force rips right through the monster's massive body. Still, the beast keeps coming. The monster charges, unaware that the stone is curving back like a boomerang. With absolutely insane power, the stone shreds its skull from behind. Driven by that sheer magical force, The beast crashes down dead, while Tran remains perfectly composed. He dumps the corpse, annoyed by the villagers' constant drama. Next morning, a mob of angry villagers arrives at his doorstep. They hammer on the door, screaming for him. Apparently, they're actually accusing him of murdering Rabbis. Their leader grabs Tran's collar, calling him a shameless criminal. He claims Tran attacked Rabbis before feeding him to the monsters. Tran sees through it. They're framing him because the village elder died while the young men were hiding in fear. It is easier to blame him than face their own cowardice, right? Furious, the man swings a heavy punch at Tran's face. He dodges it effortlessly. Tran immediately goes on the offensive. He headbutts the guy, making his nose explode in a bloody mess. Honestly, Tran loves having magic because it makes winning way too easy. A little mana for a big wish. Simple. Suddenly, another attacker charges right at him with zero hesitation. He tries swinging a heavy stick. But Tran just whispers a command, telling him to trip. Like magic, the guy faceplants before reaching him. Our main character keeps toying with them. He doesn't even need to get serious to drop these losers. His only goal is to rough them up without actually ending their lives. Tran grabs a nearby wooden club and smacks a guy's face before using him as a human shield against the rest of the gang. Finally, it's over. He wipes the floor with them while keeping his wizard status a secret. Then, Tran starts lecturing them. He tells them to use that fighting energy to go organize Robus' funeral instead of bothering him. After the beatdown, Tran turns to the ladies and asks if they want a round two. They immediately throw their hands up. They swear they want no trouble and claim they only came here to say a friendly hello. Tran brushes it off. Unlike the guys, these women clearly don't have the guts to fight. He tells the ladies to drag their beaten men back down the mountain trail. Back inside his quiet home, he knows this drama isn't over. The villagers will definitely try to use this incident to rip him off during his next trade. Whatever. He doesn't care. If they try anything funny, he will just beat them until the price is right. Tran figures no one else will dare to bother him after the absolute whooping he just handed out. But just then, a knock hits the door. He flings it open, ready to yell at whoever is bothering him now. To his surprise, the man standing there doesn't look like any of the local country folk. Tran demands to know who he is. The stranger just wanted to ask a small favor for his trip. But he realizes he might have arrived at a really bad time. Tran quickly apologizes, explaining that some uninvited guests just left his house earlier. Inside, he wonders, did he even say that right? He almost never speaks to anyone around here since he mostly avoids the village, despite the polite manners his mother tried so hard to teach him. Trying his best to salvage the situation, Tran tells the traveler he's welcome to come inside if he's searching for a place to rest. Soon, Tran whips up a massive feast for his guest. As they dig in, they start having a real conversation. Tran explains that he rarely talks to neighbors because he's a mountain boy who was born and raised here. Truly, he's lived as a shepherd his whole life. He admits it's pretty rare for this tiny town to see tourists. Surprisingly, the stranger is impressed. He says Tran has excellent manners for someone who grew up alone with sheep. Tran credits his mother for everything he knows. But he sadly mentions that she passed away from an illness a long time ago. The man makes a holy sign, assuring Tran that his mother is in heaven for raising such a fine son. With the heavy talk done, they settle into a casual vibe, and Tran asks what brought him to this remote little village. Stick with me, because this stranger reveals he is on a contract to hunt a village monster, finally exposing his identity as a wizard. Tran is completely stunned. He realizes this man is actually Rabbis, the legendary wizard everyone has been talking about. The wizard has a question for him, and Tran tells him to go ahead and ask whatever he wants. He mentions he can sense a monster's presence, but he can't actually see one anywhere. And what's even weirder is that Tran stays totally calm despite knowing exactly what kind of chaos just went down. The wizard notes Tran is the perfect target, but he doesn't seem scared at all. He says Tran is remarkably brave for a shepherd who has never even left town. In a low, serious voice, the wizard asks Tran who he really is. He drops a total bombshell, point-blank asking Tran if he is actually a wizard. This immediately sends Tran into full damage control mode. Flashback time, he once asked his mother what happens if his secret ever gets out. She used an analogy about how corrupt nobles treat simple shepherds like them. She explained if nobles are shepherds, then knights are just their loyal dogs. They might treat you like family sometimes, but they will sacrifice you the moment it's necessary. She wants a better life for her son. No one can know his secret, especially other wizards. If they ever find out, they will snatch him away and turn him into their own shepherd dog, discarded at any moment. To keep his identity a secret, he might actually have to kill. Now, Tran is already considering that dark option. The wizard sees that cold look and asks why he isn't answering the question. Just as Tran prepares to strike, the wizard laughs it off as a joke ruined by Tran's icy expression. Tran calms down because he is genuinely surprised, offering a quick apology for his cold reaction, admitting that he doesn't really have a good sense of humor. But the wizard insists he is the one who should apologize for flustering him. Tran smiles, telling the wizard it was his first time hearing a magical joke, which completely caught him off guard. The wizard realizes they haven't introduced themselves yet, revealing his name is Ka, a wanderer. They shake hands as Tran finally reveals his own identity as well. Tran is turning 18 this year, but Korn reveals that he is actually 75. Tran is shocked because Kay doesn't look his age, but wizards age much slower than normal people. They live longer too. Tran asks how he became a wanderer. Kior served the Arabian family for 60 years before leaving. He just decided to roam around without settling. Before Tran even realizes it, he and Korn fall into a very deep conversation. He is stunned that he can feel this comfortable and relaxed around a total stranger. It's getting late, so Kjorn tells Tran it's time he left. Kay then places an Arabian silver coin on the table. He tells Tran it's the purest silver around, so it will easily cover the whole meal. Tran takes the coin gratefully, wishing his new friend the best of luck. But Korn just laughs it off. He'll definitely be back to mooch some more food later on. The next morning, Tran heads out to the fields, looking more energized and happier than ever before. Meeting a wizard for the first time was amazing, and the conversation felt incredibly natural. Tran admits that Kaor actually has a better sense of humor than most adults. The night before, Kior returned with some fresh game, and Tran realized he's actually a decent guy. Before this, Tran always thought knights were just cold, emotionless dogs for the nobility. Now, he's just confused about how to explain that the monsters are already gone. That evening, Kior heads into the forest to investigate. Right away, he sees battle traces. But strangely, there's no monster presence. He spots a stone lodged in a tree and several fallen trees that were cut down. Is it possible the monster was already defeated? He's curious about who did it. Did the village chief hire another wizard behind his back? Still, it's a huge relief if the beast is dead. A safe village is all that really matters in the end. Suddenly, he catches a strange scent. He turns around, and there it is. The leopard monster Tran defeated is walking right toward him. Things just got complicated. The monster has returned as a vengeful wraith. Kaor completely freaks out. He never expected anyone to be this reckless. Before he can process what's happening, the creature lunges, forcing him to leap back in a panic. A monster becomes a wraith if its killer fails to properly disperse its hidden mana. It's basic wizard knowledge that literally everyone should know. The beast charges again, but Kaor narrowly dodges by leaping into the air. He's certain now the hunter was definitely a wizard. He just can't wrap his head around why they left the corpse. Could it have been a novice? No, he shakes that thought away. No beginner could ever bring down a beast this powerful. Since he can't solve the mystery now, Kior realizes he has to act. He decides then and there, this thing has to be destroyed. Kior fires off a magic arrow, but the creature simply nullifies his attack. Kior is absolutely stunned. This means the monster's mana is actually stronger than his own. The monster vanishes right before his eyes. Panic sets in. He has no idea where the next strike comes from. Out of nowhere, the monster reappears behind him with a deadly slash. Kior barely moves in time, but the blade still connects. That's when it hits him. This isn't a monster a regular knight can handle. At this rate, you'd need the power of a high-ranking noble to survive. Cold sweat pours down his face. Facing a nightmare like this in a tiny village was the last thing he expected. Looking at the monster, Korn realizes he's completely out of options. He has no intention of dying alone, and he plans to take that monster down with him. He starts concentrating every bit of mana into his hand, aiming to strike the beast directly the moment it lunges at him. Right on cue, the creature does exactly that. And Kior leaps forward too, ready to sacrifice his life for the kill. Just before impact, a massive magical blast erupts from the distance, tearing through the monster and ending it in one shot. The sheer look of relief on Kieran's face says it all. And then, he hears a very familiar voice behind him asking if he is okay. Kieran spins around, totally stunned. Unable to believe that Tran has been a wizard this whole time, Tran confirms it, leaving Korn confused. Tran stays silent for a moment, so Kan decides to rephrase his question, asking why Tran even helped him when he could have just walked away. Tran decides to explain, flashing back to the night. Kieran returned with a wild animal from his hunt. Tran had asked why he was playing hero when his skills could make him serious money. Kieran then explained that he feels for the villagers, since they live on the frontier without any real protection. Tran reminded him that none of this was his fault. But Kieran told him that as a wizard, he inherited the power of a god. Because of that, he believes it is his duty to protect commoners. Kieran admits that not every wizard sees things his way, as everyone follows their own path in life. Now, back in the present, Tran repeats those words to Kieran. Everyone has their own way of living, just like that night. Suddenly, the monster attacks again, but they both manage to dive out of the way just in time. Kieran warns Tran that they simply cannot handle this monster. Because it is the kind of beast only a noble could ever hope to fight. Tran tells Kan to run and warn the village chief to evacuate immediately, while he tries to hold the line. Deep down, Kior is terrified he has no chance, but he has no choice but to play his part. Right then, Tran tells him not to worry. If that last hit connected, then they have nothing to fear. Korn is shocked. Tran is basically saying that massive attack from before was not even his full strength. This leaves Korn floored, realizing Tran is fighting on the same level as the nobles or higher. Korn watches as Tran begins to absorb the mana from the air, preparing for a truly devastating attack. This is the moment Kior realizes he is standing before a wizard with power to change the world. At the same time, Tran is ready to go all out, curious to see where his own limits really are. With mana overflowing, he gathers a swarm of stones to use as lethal projectiles against the wraith. Kieran shouts that he will not let him fight the wraith alone. No matter his talent, this wraith is a terrifyingly tough opponent. Kieran is convinced they have to team up. But he instantly rethinks everything once Tran releases his first wave of attack. It is absolutely deadly. He realizes that he would only get in the way. His only role now is to let Tran's talent truly shine. Tran's attack hits with incredible force, but as the dust settles, the wraith is still very much alive. Tran is completely caught off guard by this. Korn quickly explains that physical strikes are useless against a phantom like this. So how am I supposed to kill it? Tran asks, sounding frustrated. The answer is simple, but tough. Only fire or lightning can touch a wraith. Tran tries to manifest some flames, but his first attempt is a total bust. Korn immediately calls him out, telling him he is doing it all wrong. Korn is in total disbelief. How can Tran not know the most basic common sense of a wizard to actually use a wizard's power on another living being? Establishing the right process is the absolute requirement. It finally clicks for Korn. Tran might be the one who killed the beast in the first place. The wraith goes on a rampage, tearing through everything just to get at Tran. But Korn has finally realized the truth. Tran has never actually absorbed a single drop of mana in his life. He shouts at Tran to stop just lighting fires. He needs to create and launch it. Following the advice, Tran starts concentrating a ball of heat right in his palm. Now, making fire is one thing for a wizard. But controlling that power, that takes years of grueling and specialized training. Yet Korn is left speechless when Tran conjures a massive fireball without breaking a sweat. Without hesitation, Tran lets the flames fly. The fire burns hotter and more intense as it consumes the wraith. All right, you and I can practically hear that thing scream. Korn yells for him to keep the mana flowing because every single trace of that wraith needs to be burned into total oblivion. Tran maintains his focus with an icy calm until the creature is nothing more than a charred skeleton on the ground. Korn is stunned. They actually won against such a tough opponent. A threat that usually requires a noble wizard was just taken down by some shepherd from the mountains. Unbelievable. Tran simply asks if it is over. Korn tells him he needs to absorb the mana before another wraith shows up. But how do I do that? Korn explains the trick. You just have to visualize draining the energy into yourself. Tran nods and reaches out his hand to begin the weird process. Suddenly, the mana flows out from the corpse and floods directly into his body. Korn warns him about the rush of pleasure he will feel, and Tran admits it is definitely real. Korn has to ask, is this really your first time? Tran just gives a simple yes. Usually, after a person finally awakens. Mana grows slowly over years. The only shortcut is taking it from fallen monsters or other powerful wizards. However, it is mind-blowing that Tran is handling magic at this level when he literally just started his journey today. Korn realizes Tran's natural talent is on a whole different level. Korn suddenly calls his name. He apologizes for being rude and asks which noble house he represents. Tran just ignores the question and tells him they need to fix his mangled arm first. They head back, and after some cleaning and bandaging, Korn finally starts to calm down. He apologizes again for causing such trouble. Tran reminds him once more, he doesn't come from some fancy, high-ranking noble family. He is just a lonely shepherd who doesn't even know who his own father was. So, why would someone this powerful spend their life herding sheep? Korn assures Tran that he has no intention of belittling him. But he points out that this life doesn't suit him. Tran admits his mother made this request. She warned him that nobles only use wizards and then discard them. After hearing this, Kirin notes that his mother was actually quite wise. Tran is surprised because he expected Kior to call his mother overprotective, but Korn insists that she was truly wise. Great power naturally brings conflict, and wizards have plenty of it. He explains that years ago, there was a massive war between noble houses. It was a brutal struggle between House Arabian and the great House of Zahar. So many lives were lost. 900 Arabian knights died out of 3,000. Tragically, everyone close to Kajorn died in that war, including his beloved wife and young son. Korn reveals that he was the only survivor left. His mother was right. A knight's life can vanish far more easily than others. It can be even more meaningless than the life of a commoner. However, he tells him that she was wrong about one thing, his specific aptitude. Tran is confused. Kirin explains he is just a knight of average skill. Yet Tran took down a monster that even he could not defeat. Kay tells Tran his potential matches that of a noble, not a knight. In fact, his aptitude is actually at an upper tier level. Tran tells Kaorn his mother claimed his father was a knight, but at this point, he already thinks that's a lie. However, Korn explains that nobles can often give birth to weak children. Meanwhile, incredible children on a noble level are sometimes born among knights. Ka then suggests that it would be best for Tran to leave. When asked why, he says the world simply needs more strong nobles and knights. Humans are not the apex predators just yet. Other races pushed out by the gods are still watching for a chance to rise again. Amidst this threat of destruction, the nobles only care about waging war against each other. Kieran tells him this is exactly why they need strong, kind nobles like Tran out there. Kor walks to the door, asking if he is really satisfied living as a shepherd. Tran takes a moment to think, and then he asks a question. He asks Kieran what he can gain down the mountain, and Kieran says it all depends on what he wants. Fame or family, everything is hard to get, but it is left to his imagination. As Korn leaves the house, he suggests Tran could be a wanderer, slaying monsters for people. Or perhaps an explorer who ventures deep into the unknown wilds. He could even be adopted by a noble house and walk the path of power. Tran follows Kior, realizing that the world sounds far more interesting now. It sounds better than herding sheep on this hill for the rest of his life. For the first time, he is curious about the outside world. Kieran admits he might be pushing some unwanted expectations on the young boy. But he promises to support him with every single possibility he has in his power. Just then, Korn asks about his bloodline ability, but Tran has absolutely no idea what that means. Korn apologizes for the info dump, realizing he completely forgot our main character is a total newbie to magic. Korn explains bloodline abilities are special traits inherited by nobles from their ancient ancestor, a figure named Freyan. He notes that having this bloodline is what really distinguishes a noble from a regular knight. Korn then asks if any specific spells felt natural or surprisingly easy when he first attempted to use magic. Or perhaps, does he possess some sort of incredible talent that doesn't actually require any mana at all? Tran admits he has a sharp sense of smell and is actually pretty decent at hurling stones. Korn explains that his heightened sense of smell is actually a bloodline ability, while his talent for throwing weapons is a signature trait of House Arabian. It is a fairly common ability among them, he adds. But Korn urges Tran to keep talking. As Tran reveals his skills, he notices a sudden shift in Korn's expression. Tran asks what is wrong, and Korn reveals he finally realizes which noble house Tran is actually connected to. Naturally, Tran asks which family he means. Now for the shocker. With a chilling tone, he reveals it is House Sahar, mortal enemies of House Arabian. The second Tran hears that name, the reason for Korn's cold reaction becomes crystal clear. He cannot believe he belongs to the very bloodline that Korn clearly despises with a passion. This realization leaves Tran frozen, completely unsure of what he could possibly say to the man now. He considers offering an apology, but then realizes he is being judged for the crimes of relatives he has never even met in his life. To him, they are strangers. Korn notices the look of pure dread on the boy's face and gives him a reassuring pat, telling him not to worry about the past, since Tran himself never took part in that bloody war. Tran tries to speak up, but Korn stops him, calling it a complicated situation for adults. He explains that if they continue to try washing away blood with more blood, the cycle of hatred will simply never end. Tran then asks Korn if he regrets telling him to leave the safety of the mountain. Korn admits that if Tran descends the mountain chasing power, he will likely join House Sahar. However, he looks Tran in the eye and assures him that he truly trusts his inner character. Tran is a bit confused, so Korn explains that he is referring to the innate goodness that drove the boy to save his life from that monster earlier. Plus, Tran was honest enough to reveal the identity he had hidden for so long. Korn believes that if someone like Tran gains influence, they might actually prevent another catastrophic war from breaking out. Korn turns to walk away, telling Tran there is really no need to overthink the situation, since the boy hasn't even decided if he actually wants to join his long-lost family yet. But Tran stops him, stating that his mind is finally made up. He is ready to go down the mountain. Korn praises his resolve, but Tran adds a condition. He will only head down once Korn is fully recovered. Korn is genuinely taken aback, admitting once again that Tran is a truly kind soul. Later on, Korn sits the boy down to explain the fundamental basics of their world, starting with the fact that all magic requires mana. This energy is often called the key to absolute power. He warns Tran that mana is not actually as all-powerful as people claim, but stresses that to cast any spell, you must possess mana that perfectly matches it. Tran asks about the specific mana standard needed to match his high-level magic. Kirin explains that mastering magic depends on three main pillars of power. First is bloodline, second is affinity, and the third is causality. Bloodline is exactly what it sounds like, the heritage you are born with. This rule usually applies to all nobles who are not knights. For example, it would be nearly impossible for Tran to heal his own wounds. He lacks the Rasta bloodline from the south, whose members can heal effortlessly without even needing training. Moving on to affinity. Korn explains that this one is basically all about familiarity. Essentially, a mage finds it easier to perform tasks they already prefer or use often. It is like how he can conjure a fireball as easily as tossing a rock. Tran agrees, realizing that if he had tried creating flames from scratch, he never would have hit that level of speed or power. Then there is causality, a concept Korn admits he does not fully grasp himself. Kioran asks what would happen if Tran tried to kill him with pure mana, and Tran says some light would probably just shine from his head. Kioran confirms that is the exact problem when you do not have enough causality. He places a hand over a cup on the table, making the liquid inside start to bubble. He explains that magic fails like this when there is no proper cause for the outcome. It happens when the goal you are trying to reach is just way too difficult. Tran starts to get it. If he really wanted to take out Kioran, he would need a plan. He has to provide an actual cause of death. Something like shooting fire, instead of just using mana to wish for him to die. Tran mimics the move by lighting a flame right over the cup. He points out that shooting fire is much more natural and effective than trying to light someone up directly. Kior is impressed. He loves how quickly Tran understands these complex theories, joking that he would make a better professor than a mage. Tran then mentions that he can control animals easily, but wonders why magic beasts still require causality to influence. Korn tells him it is all because of their unique mana. The two then dive into a deep, technical discussion about the mechanics of magic. Finally, Korn reveals that the Zahar bloodline possesses a very unique type of magic. It is centered on elite stealth and tracking. He suggests Tran give it a shot, and he agrees. Tran focuses on a wish to vanish, and to Korn's absolute shock, it actually works. Tran reappears, but a visibly shaken Korn admits it has been ages since he saw that. He confesses that the ability is honestly terrifying. It was the one power the Arabian Knights feared most during the Great War. Still, Korn warns him that even though it is incredibly strong, it is not completely invincible. Korn decides to teach Tran even more advanced training methods for his magic. This makes Tran wonder if he is teaching too many secrets to an enemy family mage. Kioran reminds him that he is a savior, and more importantly, he trusts Tran's character. Later, Tran heads to the village to announce his plan to sell the sheep and leave. He has already got his bags packed and ready. The village head completely loses it, asking why he would make such a huge choice without even talking to them. Tran simply tells the man to go find a way to get a shepherd. He doesn't think it's anyone's business what he does with his own property. However, he warns them to pay a fair price, otherwise, he'll release them all and leave. Tran says they can try catching the sheep after that if they really want. But he's pretty confident that they're going to have a rough time doing it. The village chief is fuming. But he knows Tran stays true to his word, no point in making him angrier. Left with no choice, the chief pays up and tells him to do whatever. With that settled, Kaor and Tran hit the road to start their journey. But Tran suddenly remembers the villager still owes Kaor some serious compensation. Kaor explains he's not taking a dime since Tran was the one who defeated the beast. Shortly after, they reach a fork in the road where Kaor tells Tran it's time to part ways. He apologizes for turning down the travel offer. He just feels more comfortable being alone. Tran assures him it's totally fine and thanks him for all the help. The two bid each other farewell, with Tran hoping their next meeting is filled with smiles. As Kaor fades into the distance, Tran finally realizes how much he had always craved, having a real father figure. Tran keeps moving, but while crossing the desert, he spots a strange group in the distance. He wonders if they might be traveling merchants moving from one village to another. So, Tran decides to head over and ask them for some directions. At first, the group thinks Tran is looking for a fight. But he explains he's just a lone traveler looking for the way to the nearest city. A man wearing an eye patch tells him to follow the road they just came from. He says it will lead him straight to a city called Murai. Tran moves out of their path, thanking the group for the helpful information. But just as he is about to head off, the man stops him. He tells Tran that directions aren't free. He needs to hand something over in return. Before Tran can even react, the group has surrounded him with their weapons drawn. That is when it finally clicks. He is dealing with bandits, the man with the eye. Patch tells Tran that in this wasteland, nobody would blink an eye if a traveler died. He tells Tran to hand over his belongings while they are still being nice, because killing him would just be a total pain for them. Tran shocks the bandits by saying that since they're just low-life killers who hunt people, he might as well use them for target practice. The sinister grin on his face is enough to send a cold shiver down their spines. But the bandits just close in on him, convinced he is only bluffing. Then, with a flick of his wrist, Tran summons a wind that sends them flying. Tran is genuinely surprised. He could whip up such a strong gale with almost no mana. The bandits groan on the ground, wondering what hit them, while Tran pulls out his water gourd. He pulls water from the gourd, shaping it into sharp arrows that pierce right through a bandit. Tran doesn't feel very satisfied, though. He thinks throwing stones is actually faster and stronger. By now, the bandit leader realizes they are completely doomed and starts begging Tran for mercy. He promises Tran they will give him absolutely anything he wants. All right, so while the leader begs for his life, his buddies try to jump Tran from behind. Just as they're about to strike, Tran stomps the ground, sending sand spikes through them all. The leader is absolutely frozen now with pure terror. Tran tells the guy he has one question. Terrified, the leader practically begs to answer whatever our main character asks. He asks the guy why they attacked so recklessly. After all, he could have easily been a powerful wizard from the start. The leader admits it's because Tran bowed his head, even while they were being incredibly rude to him. Plus, he greeted them with such respect, they just assumed he was another ordinary person with no power. Tran actually thanks him, saying that the bandit's words just taught him a very important lesson about this world. The leader keeps begging for mercy, but he looks up only to realize that death has already arrived. Before Tran and Kjorn left the mountain, Kjorn warned him never to show mercy to bandits. Scum like that will never hesitate to hurt innocent people. He knows he can't spare them. A life spared out of pity today could mean 10 good people suffer tomorrow. Tran gets ready to move out, taking the exact same path the bandits used to reach him. But as he walks on, reality finally sets in. He just killed people, even though he feels a heavy weight of guilt in his chest. He knows he couldn't let them live. Kjorn's warning was clear: mercy is a luxury he can't afford. Stick with me here. After trekking the wasteland and reflecting on Kjorn's lessons, Tran finally reaches a new world. From his high vantage point, he can see the small city of Murai laid out below. And the moment he enters the city, the massive crowd blows him away. It is his first time seeing this many people in one place. He's stunned. The architecture is totally different from anything in his old village. To him, it finally feels like he's in a real city. Tran walks up to a fruit seller to offer a greeting. The man assumes Tran's looking to buy. But Tran admits he's not a customer. He remembers Kjorn's advice: the first thing you do in a city is find a safe inn. Tran asks for directions to an inn, but the fruit seller just tries to brush him off. He tells him to get lost since he isn't buying. Tran's confused by the rudeness. Is it some kind of local rule that you have to buy fruit before asking questions? He points to an apple and asks for the price. The price is 2 dupit. When Tran pulls out 2 coins, it's immediately obvious that he's a total outsider. Still, He lets him know that other coins work too, just as Tran is about to pay the man. He asks about the inn again. The man points him straight down the long road behind the Cape shop and then left. He adds, "It's the building with the blue roof. Apparently, it's the biggest inn in the whole city." Following the directions, Tran arrives at the inn where he's greeted by a staff member named Lena. Tran asks for the nightly rate. She tells him it will be exactly 16 dupit. Tran agrees, but admits there is something else he is really curious to find out. Are there any monsters nearby with a bounty on their heads? Lena is initially confused by this. See, Tran has a goal. He needs to kill monsters and absorb their precious mana. Absolute madness. Plus, you and I know that hunting monsters brings in good money, per Kaor. Seeing Lena go quiet, Tran speaks up and asks what is on her mind. She reminds him that nothing is ever truly free, after his recent kindness. She points him toward City Hall, but Tran has absolutely no idea what that is. Lena explains it is where the Lord's officials manage the town's business and public affairs. But it is likely locked up tight for the night since it is already late. Still, she tells him to visit tomorrow because that is where monster bounties are posted. Lena asks if he is a monster hunter, leaving Tran looking completely lost. She shares an old legend: hunt enough monsters, and even an ordinary person becomes a wizard. She just assumes that becoming a wizard is Tran's ultimate goal. Out of nowhere, a rugged hunter named Madden makes his entrance. Creeping up behind Tran, he confirms Lena's story, claiming he has seen it with his own 2 eyes. Lena and Madden clearly go way back, and she is shocked the guy is still breathing. Madden laughs it off, vowing he won't die until he finally reaches wizard status. Tran is instantly hooked by Madden's words and asks him to explain how it works. Madden explains that wizards grow in power by slaughtering dangerous monsters. That same logic applies to any regular person who kills a monster too. Do it enough and you become a wizard. He reveals his whole crew is hunting for power. With stars in his eyes, Tran asks if any of them succeeded yet. Madden says no. In this city, there is only the Lord's wizard and 3 elite subordinates. Since Tran claims to be a hunter, Madden looks him over. He mocks Tran for having such trashy gear and not even carrying a proper sword. Tran just smiles and pulls out his trusty sling to show him otherwise. Madden is actually impressed. That worn-out leather proves Tran has seen some serious action. Tran confirms he has, since it is perfect for sniping egg-sized stones very quickly. Madden suggests that the sling might be enough to take down some monster foxes or rabbits. He admits they need one more shooter, and he asks if Tran wants to join the team. Tran politely turns him down, humble as always. But he thanks the man for the kind offer. That night, Tran heads to his room, reflecting on one hell of a day. He worries about the future. He never actually thought he would ever leave his quiet village. While practicing his magic, his sharp senses pick up on someone lingering in the hallway. He snaps out of bed and demands to know who is outside his door. Kaorn's voice echoes in his head, "Never, ever let your guard down." Even an inn in a big city is far from safe for a lone traveler. Ready for a fight, Tran approaches the door and swings it wide open. To his total shock, he finds Lena standing right there. She asks if he is asleep, which is obviously a pretty silly question. She claims she is there to keep him warm, thinking his room might be chilly. Tran is left blinking in confusion, asking her what she even means by that. Lena gestures to herself, repeating the offer, but the poor guy is still totally clueless. And here is where you and I see this story take a wild turn. Tran looks her in the eyes and asks what if he simply wants nothing at all. Lena suddenly grabs him by the shoulders. She tells him not to lie, she can see the truth in his eyes. Instantly, Tran's gaze turns ice cold. See, he remembers the warning from Ka about inmates. Most carry diseases, and getting involved with them is dangerous. Sure, wizards are naturally disease-resistant. But the real problem, he could pass those sicknesses to other women if he is not careful. Kaorn's voice echoes in his head. Do not let momentary desire trap you into a life of regret. Ultimately, Tran turns Lena away, and she storms off in a total rage. It is finally hitting Tran. Life in the big city is intense. First it was that fruit shop seller. And now he is already dealing with drama from Lena. This place is exhausting. Back at his bed, Tran wonders why they put a price on every little thing. To him, these city streets feel truly cold-hearted. Meanwhile, Midden's crew is questioning the boss. Why recruit Tran? The guy does not exactly look like some elite warrior. They even joke that he is just a cocky kid who would make for some good monster bait. Midden just sighs, telling them that Tran reminds him of himself back in the day. Truthfully, Midden was just worried about the primitive weapon Tran was using for hunting. He wants the kid close so he can keep him alive for just a little bit longer. His crew can hardly believe how soft-hearted their boss really is. Little do they know, Tran can hear every single word from his room. A small smile plays on his lips. Hearing their concern makes him realize something. Maybe this city is not quite as cold-hearted as he first thought. The next morning, Tran heads to the hall and meets a seriously rude official. He tells the man he is there to hunt monsters. But the official's silence reminds Tran of Korn's warning. He said the world would never be kind to someone like him. Tran once asked Korn why that was, and the old man replied simply, "Because the world has no reason to." He told Tran the only way to earn respect is to reveal his true power. Showing he is a wizard would make ordinary people bow their heads in an instant. The official slides a book over, telling him to check the target before he heads out the door. It is a crow monster, a dangerous one. The man tells him to bring the corpse back, if he can even survive. He warns that killing it without absorbing the mana creates a wraith, but Tran is already well aware of the risks. The official adds that the penalty for that crime under city law is a swift execution. Tran, curious, asks why the knights are not hunting these. The man scoffs, saying knights have no spare time to waste on such low-level tasks. Basically, knights keep order inside the walls. Hunting the filth outside, that is a job for expendable people like Tran. Ignoring the rudeness, Tran heads out. The official just watches him go, convinced the kid is walking to his death. Not much later, though. Tran returns hauling a massive crow monster with a gaping hole in its chest. The officials are stunned. They are speechless at how fast he finished the job and brought the whole corpse back. They ask if he worked alone. Tran's answer is a simple yes. He does not bother with words. He just wants the bounty. One official scrambles to the counter to grab the heavy bag of coins. As he hands it over, he tells Tran to go rest. He must be exhausted after a hunt like that. The officials are left in total shock. Tran's kill was so clean that the entire monster was perfectly preserved. Right then, that same official who attended him earlier notices that Tran hasn't actually left the building area yet. He asks what he's still doing there, and Tran asks if there are any other monsters actually worth hunting. The officials are floored to hear this, because they can't believe Tran still has the strength for more hunts. 3 days later, Tran has already taken down 30 monsters. And Lena serves him the absolute best dish on their entire menu. Lena mentions she is pretty sure that Tran is rolling in gold. But Tran admits that money is not his only goal. What he's really after is the monster's mana. And thanks to all the ones he's hunted, he has grown much stronger. Tran realizes that his mana has increased significantly compared to the day he first met Korn. However, he knows there is a limit to how strong he can get by farming weak monsters. Moments later, Tran has completely polished off every bit of food sitting before him. And he even believes that someone shared the meal with him, but they tell him that he ate it all by himself. Tran commends the chef, telling him that the food was truly delicious. And the chef accepts the compliment, promising to make it even better next time. Tran is about to head to his room when he's grabbed from behind by one of Midden's lackeys, who demands that Tran give them cash because they heard he has been making a lot lately. Tran doesn't even argue with the guy. He just slaps him across the face, shocking him and his friends. The guy's friend tries to fight back by throwing a punch at Tran, but he easily dodges it and strikes him back in the face. The first idiot rushes toward Tran with a stool. but Tran easily blocks the attack before sending the guy flying with a simple flicker to the head. Lena then screams at the group to stop fighting in the inn. Later on, Midden shows up at Tran's door, bowing his head low to apologize for what happened. While telling Tran he has already scolded the two culprits, assuring him that it will never happen again. Midden mentions that the group has been very short on money, and they likely got jealous because of the huge amount Tran is making. Midden barks at the two, telling them to apologize, and they follow their boss's orders immediately. Tran asks if things are really that tough, and Midden admits that in 3 days, they might not even be able to pay the room fee. Just then, Tran hands him a money pouch, shocking Midden, who asks why he's giving them this money. Tran then tells him it's repayment for the kindness he showed when he said he was worried, which is why he wanted to bring him along. Midden is stunned when he hears this and asks how Tran knows, but Tran just ignores the question. However, Tran reminds Midden that nothing is free and asks him for some information, with a bright smile on his face. Midden assures Tran that he will tell him everything because information is what he is best at. The next day, Tran heads out on a hunt, which he believes will be his last in the city because Midden already gave him information about the next place to go. It turns out that Midden gave him some really solid intel, and it appears that Midden is actually a good man. Even though he's not as seasoned as Kaor, this makes him purer and kinder. Suddenly, Tran catches a whiff of a powerful scent, and he dashes in that direction immediately, hoping it's not what he thinks it is. All right, you and I are following Tran as he catches a whiff of something foul, the smell of blood. And even worse, he finds his rival from yesterday lying in a pool of red. But the real shock comes when he turns around to find Madden's lifeless body on the dirt. He is left wondering what kind of nightmare happened here. Suddenly, one of the crew members stirs. Barely clinging to life, the survivor gasps out a warning. It was a monster, a rabbit monster. Tran spins around as the killer watches him. Without warning, the beast lunges with absolutely blinding, lethal speed. It is a near miss, but he manages to dodge the strike at the final second. Quick as a flash, Tran pulls his sling and fires, but the rabbit weaves around the stone effortlessly. That is, when it clicks, this monster is a pro at dodging long-range attacks. It has seen this before. The rabbit charges for a second strike. But this time, Tran simply vanishes into thin air, leaving the beast completely bewildered. Before it can react, Tran reappears behind it and drives a dagger straight into its neck. Even with a fatal wound, the rabbit's frantic counterattack sends Tran flying backward. Not letting up, the monster chases after him with pure animal rage. Tran slips into the shadows again. Driven mad, the beast begins lashing out blindly at nothing. Massive trees are shredded like paper by its sheer, desperate power. Its strength finally fades. With one last, piercing shriek, the killer collapses from blood loss. With the beast down, Tran begins absorbing its mana, but something feels different. He realizes the energy flowing into him is on a completely different level. It far outclasses the leopard from the village. Now, you and I need to watch this next part closely. The lone survivor watches in total disbelief, shocked to realize that Tran is actually a wizard. Tran doesn't deny it, prompting the man to ask why he is keeping such power hidden. Ignoring the question, Tran asks if any of the fallen men have families who need their things. The man sadly shakes his head. No one. This reminds Tran of his talk with Midden about a massive, legendary city known as Orem. Rumor has it, Orem houses a library with thousands of ancient books. But there is a catch. The library is strictly reserved for wizards only. After burying his companions, Tran decides it is finally time to head for Orem. He bids Midden a final, peaceful farewell. When he finally reaches the city walls, Tran sees why Murai was called tiny. Orem is massive enough to swallow 10 cities like it. You and I can see the crowd at the gates is staggering. Thousands are fighting to get inside. He wonders if the guards are hunting for dangerous criminals. Then again, for a city this grand, tight security is just part of the deal. But just as he tries to pass, a guard blocks his path with a scowl. The guard snarls that a beggar in such filthy rags has no business entering a place like this. He tells Tran to find some cover and clean himself up before trying again. Eventually, Tran makes it inside and heads straight for that legendary, massive library. The scale is breathtaking. It is so impossibly huge that Tran is certain it was built using magic. At the doors, more guards block him, stating that this sanctuary is strictly off-limits to everyone except wizards. When Tran claims to be one, the guards take it as an insult. They think he is just a liar. One of them reaches out, ready to push Tran away. And suddenly, Tran feels something very strange pulsing within his hand. Curran explained that wizards recognize each other simply by sensing the flow of another's mana. This gauging of power is instant, and this knight is nearly crushed by Tran's sheer pressure. The weight of Tran's force is so intense that the knight actually collapses, worrying his partner. He claims he is fine, but the shock is very real. Deep down, he knows Tran is terrifyingly powerful, likely noble class or even higher. He pulls himself together and introduces himself as Kenya, a knight serving House Valtes. Kenya. He asks for Tran's family name, but Tran questions if such a thing is actually required here. Kenya admits it is not required, but there is a catch. He needs the patriarch's blessing first, so Kenya decides to contact the main house immediately. Within a few moments, what Tran expected to be a simple errand lands him right in the middle of House Valtes. He is led to a massive bath where a team of maids begins scrubbing his body. Feeling a bit exposed, he asks them to stop and let him finish washing himself. The maids panic, explaining they will be punished for failing to properly serve such an esteemed guest. To keep them out of trouble, Tran sighs and tells them to just do their job. Once he is dressed in the fine noble attire provided, the maids are stunned by his beauty. They beg for his forgiveness, but Tran kindly tells them that they did nothing wrong. Yet, the girls insist that he should not speak to them so casually. Tran can barely believe this stuffy etiquette, but soon he meets the house's blunt young lady, Azella. Azella immediately demands to know which house he represents. Tran dodges the question, stating that his origins are a private matter for now. This spikes her curiosity, and she immediately starts plotting a devious little prank to test him. Without warning, she flares her mana and challenges Tran to match her intensity. Tran obliges, and as Azella's aura glows yellow, Tran erupts with a massive blue light. Their overwhelming presence forces everyone else in the room to bow their heads. Impressed, Azella gives a nod before casually suggesting they should just get married. As always, Tran's expression goes cold in pure shock and confusion. Even her butler has to step in and tell her to stop. She plays it off as a joke, but as she leaves, she tells him to seriously think it over. Once she is gone, Tran looks down at his hands and notices they are actually shaking. It hits him that this girl's mana capacity is actually on par with his own. A moment later, he is summoned to the patriarch's office to meet the head of the family, Rug Valtes. Rug acknowledges the request, but warns him that the library contents are quite ordinary. He makes it clear that there is no legendary ancient magic hidden within those walls. He even clarifies that there is no secret technique hidden inside that can boost mana levels. Tran keeps his cool, assuring the man that he never came here looking for power-ups anyway. Rug tells Tran that he has no intention of stopping him. He explains that since Tran is determined, he can enter, as there is nothing top secret inside. That library holds no secrets that would actually hurt their house, since it has already gotten quite late. Rug asks Tran to return tomorrow. Tran thanks him, promising he won't forget this act of kindness. The next day, guards salute Tran respectfully once they see his official library pass. Tran enters the library and is immediately stunned. The place is massive and incredibly majestic. He is still admiring the view when a lowly suddenly appears right beside him. The boy welcomes him, revealing that he is actually the head librarian. Now it's time for the rules. Aloli starts laying out exactly how things work here. Tran is secretly losing it. He definitely didn't expect a literal child to be in charge. Rule number 1 is simple: do not damage anything. If you break it, you pay for it. Secondly, no books are allowed to leave this building. They stay right here. Also, the kid adds that he will be keeping a very close eye on him. Tran asks for some space, though. Staring while he reads is just a bit awkward. Curious, Tran asks if the kid actually reads these books himself or just guards them. He does, and even offers to help Tran find any specific knowledge he is hunting. The librarian offers him some options, maybe a romance or some history. But Tran wants something simpler. He just needs to learn the basic common sense of this world. Soon, a lowly brings over a massive stack of books for Tran to study. These are hundreds of years old, ancient stuff basically. But the kid admits they probably won't have what Tran needs. He brings another set instead. These should be much more helpful. Tran is grateful. As he looks them over, he's genuinely impressed by the quality. He opens the first page and wow, it's like a whole new heaven of knowledge. Tran is hooked. He starts coming back every single day, making it his new routine. Slowly, the world starts making sense. Geography, maps, and borders. He learns about the different races and even proper wizard etiquette. He even discovers how complicated items are manufactured and processed in this era. Piece by piece, the puzzle of this unknown world finally starts fitting together. What was once a total mystery is now becoming clear and vivid. A few days later, Rug calls him in. He's heard Tran has been a regular. Rug explains that treating him like a noble is one thing, but this, giving him library access, was an extra act of pure goodwill. And now, it's time for Tran to pay back that little favor. Tran doesn't hesitate. He asks the man exactly what he needs. A monster has appeared north of the city, and it's been terrorizing travelers. Tran asks if he should hunt it. Rug reveals 4 knights previously went, but not one of them returned. For this mission, he needs a noble to step up, but the Volta house is currently short-staffed. Tran is willing to help since wizards protect the people, but he feels like something is slightly off here. Rug keeps talking about the Northern Road. It's a vital trade route, and it's been completely blocked off for 10 days now. Then Tran realizes it. This problem started long before he even showed up in the city. That's why Rug was so generous with the library. Soon, the hunting party readies their gear. Azella is part of the group as well. She's openly annoyed that her father sent Tran along, joined by another family member named Marvin Valtis. Moving deep into the forest now. Marvin checks if Tran likes Azella, but Tran isn't interested at all. Marvin breathes a sigh of relief, one less rival. Moments later, they find a smashed carriage, the work of the monster they're tracking. While the soldiers investigate the area, Tran is the first to catch the scent of the situation. He informs them that their target is actually a monkey. Azella is skeptical, wondering how he could have reached that conclusion. Tran points out a distant handprint, revealing exactly what they're dealing with. The beast attacked the carriage before disappearing back into the dense trees. He tells them they can track the beast if they follow the mana trail. Neither Azella nor Marvin have that kind of magic. Tracking isn't their specialty. Tran steps up, deciding to take a closer look at the tracks himself. Azella is stunned once she realizes which bloodline Tran belongs to. He picks up a cloth from the wreck to track the monkey. Tran. He senses the mana flow immediately and points the group in the right direction. Before long, they reach a stream where the trail suddenly goes cold. He explains that the monster must have washed off in the water to hide its trail. Azella is shocked. A mere beast shouldn't be smart enough to avoid being tracked. Tran tries to calm them, suggesting the monkey might have just washed off because it wanted to. Suddenly, Tran catches that familiar scent once again. He shouts a warning. The monster is right behind them. Just as he predicted, the terrifying beast emerges from the shadows. To make matters worse, the giant monkey starts hurling massive stones. The rocks fly at insane speeds, tearing through the nights, but Tran manages to dodge. He's stunned to see Azella and Marvin using 2 knights as human shields instead of dodging. Tran is disgusted. It seems his mother was right about these people after all. The monster turns to make a quick escape. Azella orders the knights to give chase, but they're about to lose the beast. Suddenly, a stone whistles past Azella's head at blinding speed. It rips through the formation and slams into the monster, pinning it to the ground. Azella and Marvin spin around in total shock, only to find that it was Tran who launched that stone using nothing but a slingshot. With the beast pinned down, Azella unleashes her fire magic, roasting the creature with heat so intense it scorches the air. Tran is actually impressed. The House Voltus bloodline, they really are just a bunch of pyromaniacs. Once the monkey is thoroughly roasted, Azella admits she felt a chill of fear when that stone came flying toward them. While Azella and Marvin go back to their teasing, the injured knights are crying out for help, but Azella just tells them to stop whining. One guy even had his entire arm torn off in the chaos. The rest of the team, finally, starts giving first aid to the wounded. Tran is just glad that nobody actually died in the ambush. Even though it was a surprise attack, he knows they could have avoided these serious injuries. Marvin and Azella are clearly stronger than these knights, but they didn't care. Instead of fighting, they used their own weak allies as human shields. Marvin catches the weird look on Tran's face and asks what's up, but Tran just brushes it off as nothing. Azella then chimes in, inviting Tran to join them in absorbing some fresh mana. Tran agrees, and soon the three of them surround the monkey to begin the mana absorption. Apparently, now, you and I should note that Tran read multiple people can absorb mana together without weakening the enhancement. Before long, Marvin and Azella hit their limit and have to stop, gasping for air. But they are shocked to see that Tran is still going, absorbing even more mana. Azella finally gets why her father sent him along. His mana capacity and spell skills are honestly on her own level. In fact, it is even more impressive considering Tran is a young noble who hasn't even hit his full growth yet. Eventually, the group makes their way back to the castle. Marvin gives Tran a solid pat on the back, crediting their victory over the monster entirely to his efforts. Tran tries to play it cool though, acting like it was nothing special. Honestly, he is beating himself up for not noticing the threat sooner than he did. That mistake gave the monster a chance to land that first hit. Plus, Tran didn't expect a search ability. The others are stunned when he mentions this, catching them off guard. Tran explains that a monster's traits usually hint at what kind of special abilities they have managed to awaken. He points out that the monkey they took down had unusually massive hands and huge eyes. It definitely didn't look like a normal monkey anymore. Tran believes it likely gained the power to hurl things with insane force and the ability to see through the densest parts of the forest. Marvin is totally blown away by how much Tran knows about these mystical creatures. Tran simply mentions that he studied a monster encyclopedia back at the library. Marvin is shocked because nobody ever visits the library since it is seen as way too stuffy. Azella admits she peeked in once long ago out of curiosity, but it didn't last very long. The place was filled with difficult books. She gave up before even finishing half a single volume. Tran suggests that next time they have a chance, they should just ask the librarian for something easier to read. Azella is confused, though, because she had no idea there was even a librarian working there. Later, Tran heads back to the library, where a very excited librarian greets him with open arms. Standing before this strange man, Tran realizes he made a slight mistake. This guy doesn't exactly look like your typical librarian. Tran asks how he already knows his name, which seems to catch the man by surprise. Caught in the act, he admits he saw the name on Tran's entry permit earlier. He explains that as long as he is in the library, he can see every single thing happening. Tran then asks what he should actually call the mysterious man. He mentions he doesn't have a name, so Tran can call him whatever he wants, since he has no specific name. Tran decides to just call him the librarian. Honestly, you and I can see the librarian making things even more awkward with some weird adult talk. Tran wonders if he is from the old empire, but the man reveals he wasn't even human to begin with. He is basically a spirit, explaining that he and the library are actually one and the same. His current appearance is just a communication tool, shaped by the preference of the user. Tran quickly argues that this creepy form has absolutely nothing to do with his taste. The librarian won't back down, insisting that he is simply a reflection of what Tran truly wants to see. Tran confirms his suspicion by reaching out to touch the librarian, only to watch his hand pass right through him. The librarian admits it is incredibly frustrating that he can't use physical force. If he could actually touch those who use the library, he would have punished every single person who dared to take books out. Tran quickly realizes that absolutely no one even knows this guy exists. The librarian replies that until now, nobody had the right qualifications to even perceive his presence. His creator actually designed him, so only those above a certain power level could ever hope to see him. This basically means Tran is the only person currently capable of seeing him. When Tran asks what he means by qualifications, the librarian mentions he is talking about his bloodline. Tran pushes for more info, but the librarian just teases him, telling him to go ask his parents instead. Tran is forced to admit that he is an orphan, so the guy decides to check things out himself. He needs consent to examine Tran's body, and the young man nervously agrees to it. The librarian thrusts his hand deep into Tran's chest, revealing what he already suspected. He confirms the pursuer and hunter bloodlines, both of which are famous traits of the House Zahar. Suddenly, he senses something else, a third bloodline that has been mixed in. It turns out Tran is the result of two parents with completely different bloodlines. When asked about the other one, the librarian admits he doesn't know because it is still locked. Apparently, a locked bloodline is actually quite common in hybrid combinations. It should eventually open up naturally as Tran grows stronger. Tran finally confirms what he's been suspecting all along. His mother was far too educated to be a simple commoner. She was likely the descendant of some powerful noble house. Tran then thanks the librarian for his help, expressing deep gratitude. The librarian suggests he stay one more month if he is truly thankful. After this, Tran continues his studies, but the librarian is now always by his side. Whenever Tran needs an explanation about a book, the librarian happily breaks it down. In fact, the guy possesses vast knowledge that has been lost for thousands of years. Eventually, he starts teaching Tran the very laws of nature, completely blowing the young man's mind. Tran also learns about how every single disease emerges from microorganisms. He discovers that the decay of living things is actually caused by these tiny germs. He starts to grasp the most basic scientific principles. Things like light refraction, how friction generates heat, and the biology of life. He understands how living things get injured and exactly how they begin to heal. Later, he conducts his own experiment on decay. His mind is blown when he actually pulls it off. Thanks to everything he has learned, Tran is able to significantly raise his skills as a wizard. He tells the librarian that maybe the great houses are monopolizing this knowledge. If every wizard knew these secrets, those houses would lose their edge. The librarian finally understands why the general level of knowledge has been dropping over time. Before he knows it, the month is over. Tran tells the librarian that it is finally time for him to leave. The librarian is shocked by this news, but Tran mentions that Rug is already hinting at his departure. The librarian is devastated. He desperately leaps toward Tran with all his might, begging to go along. But he simply falls through Tran's body. When asked if he can actually leave the librarian sadly says no. However, "All right, you and I see the guy promising to protect Tran," but Tran isn't buying it and rejects the offer. As he leaves, he tells the librarian he will visit often. After all, there are way too many stories in those stacks he hasn't read yet. With that, Tran packs his gear and finally heads out of the city. He grabs a map from the library and learns that House Zahar's base in the Unreal Desert is far to the east of Orem. It is time. Tran decides to head for Zahar to uncover the truth about his missing parents. That night, Tran sets up camp in the woods. He is in no rush. If those clues were going to vanish, they would be gone by now. Continuing his long journey east, He clears out monsters along the path. The next day, he finds a horse protecting its unconscious master from two dark elves. The elves are fuming. Imagine getting pushed back by a literal freaking horse. To deal with the horse, the elves tap into their necromancer powers, raising the surrounding monster corpses to do their dark bidding. Tran stays hidden, watching from the shadows as the elves carry out their deed. Now, you and I have to wonder if he should help, since he has no idea if the fallen guy is actually the aggressor. The elves then decide to snack on the other humans they have already slaughtered, while they find a way to take that stubborn horse out of the equation. Seeing their cannibalism is the final straw. Tran is disgusted and immediately activates his stealth mode, moving with perfect precision while staying hidden. He hurls a stone with perfect aim, decapitating the elf instantly. His partner panics when he sees his friend suddenly become a headless corpse. He frantically rallies his undead monster squad. Tran strikes again, but a massive bull monster steps in, blocking the attack with its thick, iron-like skull. The bull then charges toward the direction where Tran was attacking from. It tears through the trees without care, but can't catch him. The elf panics, knowing what a stealth user can do. He sends one of his beasts to sniff out exactly where Tran is hiding. Tran is forced out of stealth mode, and the elf commands every single beast to go after him. Tran summons a blast of fire and manages to take out one of the monsters, but before he can even readjust, the massive bull dives straight toward him. It's a close call, but Tran manages to leap out of the way. Tran panics, realizing just how fast these monsters are. He's lucky he managed to take out one elf already. Suddenly, teeth sink into him. One of the monsters caught him from behind. The beast clamps its jaws onto his heel, hard. While Tran struggles to shake it off, the bull slams into him, sending him flying into a nearby tree. The impact is brutal. Tran hits the trunk with a sickening thud and screams in agony. He coughs up blood, falling to his knees as the intense pain takes over. The elf sneers, promising Tran that his death will be long, slow, and incredibly painful. Out of nowhere, the horse kicks the elf right in the face, flooring him instantly. The elf shrieks for help, and the monsters immediately turn their fury toward the horse. Big mistake. Ignoring Tran gives him the opening he needs. He launches a massive attack that rips the elf's head right off. With both elves dead, their undead thralls collapse too. Tran sinks to his knees, completely drained. The horse trots over to check on him, and he gives it a tired thanks. Later that night, the owner finally stirs. He wakes up to find a total stranger sitting right in front of him. Tran gives a casual greeting, but the man is on edge. Who the hell are you? All right, you and I are watching as Tran explains he saw the man being jumped by dark elves, so he had to save him. The horse trots over, and the man gives it a gentle pet, introducing the loyal creature as Tilly. Tran gives the guy a nod, saying Tilly is a great horse for knowing she had to protect her master. The man offers his sincere thanks and introduces himself as Eyes from the noble house of Berg. Tran shares his name too. Before asking if there was a reason, those dark elves were trying to take his head off. Eyes explains he was just on a simple pilgrimage with his crew when the elves attacked without any warning. He had heard rumors that other races were total savages, but he never imagined they would be this brutal. Eyes starts to break down in tears, quickly apologizing to Tran for being so emotional. He mentions he lost people who were incredibly precious to him, leading Tran to ask if they were his blood family. Eyes clarifies they were actually the knights and servants who joined him on this long pilgrimage. Honestly, they raised him from a young age, so they were his real family in every way that mattered. Tran senses Eyes is a good soul and asks for the enemy count, noting he only managed to take down 2 of the dark elves himself. But Eyes reveals he actually took care of the rest. Still, just to make sure they aren't being followed. Tran activates his search skill to scan the perimeter, making certain no more elves are hiding in the shadows. Eyes then asks Tran if he has any. Busy with anything urgent, and Tran admits he is actually in the middle of his own pilgrimage. Eyes is stunned that someone this strong is on a solo trek, wondering if Tran is the secret heir of some massive powerhouse family. He also asks why he is traveling alone, but Tran keeps it vague, claiming he is not actually as powerful as he looks. He explains he only got the win by catching one elf off guard and getting a huge assist from Tilly for the other. To gauge each other, the two warriors decide to release their powerful auras at once. Once the dust settles, Tran is completely shocked by the massive amount of mana flowing inside of Eyes. He realizes Eyes would likely outclass him in mana if he had not just absorbed energy from those dark elves. Eyes is now certain Tran comes from an elite and noble bloodline. What is more, he is convinced Tran has not even hit his peak yet, making him wonder why such a genius is wandering solo. Since Tran has no set path, Eyes invites him to come back to the prestigious House of Berg. He promises to reward Tran for saving his life and acting as his bodyguard until they reach the safety of home. When Tran asks about the reward, get this. Eyes reveals his family are master enchanters and loyal vassals to the great House of Arabian. They serve the legendary power that rules the frozen north. His bloodline has been crafting elite magic artifacts for countless generations now. He guarantees he will forge the highest quality magic tool just for his new friend, Tran. Shortly after, the two of them bury the fallen. And Eyes feels terrible that he cannot return the bodies of his friends back to their grieving families. Tran tells him to stop being so hard on himself because doing something like that would be nearly impossible. Eyes offers another thank you, but Tran asks why he is being so polite. Eyes explains it is because Tran is not mocking him, despite the fact that he is a noble. Usually, crying over dead servants would make a nobleman look weak. Tran is caught off guard, asking Eyes why on earth he thinks showing heart is pathetic. Eyes explains that this is exactly what his father taught him. He says his father believes those falling in righteous battle are honored. They join the gods in the heavenly palace, and grieving for them is just a sign of weakness. A true noble must keep moving forward by standing on the many sacrifices made. However, Tran tells him that this isn't a sign of weakness but kindness. Eyes suggests they drop the formalities and speak more comfortably since they are going to be traveling together. Plus, he doesn't think their age difference is that big, and Tran agrees. Eyes reaches out for a handshake, calling him a true friend and ally. Tran takes a moment to think about this friendship thing, when he realizes it's actually a great idea. He shakes hands with Eyes, looking forward to the journey ahead together. Later on, Eyes suggests they take a quick break before continuing their long journey. Then he pulls out a strange chest, and after Tran asks about it, Eyes explains it is actually a cold storage chest. He opens it up to show off the various items he's been keeping inside since his last city visit. Tran is completely blown away. He asks if it's always this cold. Eyes confirms this, saying most food can be stored for an entire week without any issues. Then he reveals even more magic. He shows off devices he invented, like an alarm that warns of approaching enemies. He even mentions his current outfit is a magic tool with a self-cleaning function. Tran is stunned by all this since magic items like these are extremely rare. Tran can't believe how impressive the fabric is. Eyes assures him that once they return to the main house, he will reward him with items that are far better than this. In fact, if his family refuses to allow it, he'll just make the items himself. Then Eyes tells Tran that he's also an impressive guy after seeing him in action during their travels. He's seen him use so many types of magic, from controlling animals to freezing and levitation, changing terrain, controlling liquids, power enhancements, lightning strikes, and even creating light. Eyes asks if he spent his whole life practicing magic, or if some kind of bloodline ability lets him master any spell he wants. Deep down, Tran knows he simply has the natural talent to learn any magic, but he decides to keep that secret. He reminds Eyes about their deal, not to pry into which family he belongs to. Eyes backs off, claiming he was only joking since he is absolutely sure that a bloodline ability like that doesn't even exist. Then Eyes asks Tran how old he is since he looks pretty young. Tran mentions that he is only 1 month away from turning 18. Eyes completely freaks out when he hears this because he is turning 43 this year. However, Eyes insists that the huge age gap doesn't really matter. He says he should have suspected this when Tran managed to take down those 2 wraith sorcerers alone. He just didn't expect to find 2 geniuses in this world, which makes Tran ask what he means by 2. Eyes says they're both quite similar. But the other genius has an incredible bloodline. He explains that this other genius is actually his cousin named Misei. Tran asks if Misei can also craft magic tools for him. But Eyes explains that she belongs to the main family house. Let us find out what the main house is, as Eyes reveals she is actually a princess of Arabian. On top of that, there is a real chance she will even lead this massive house one day. She explains that unlike ordinary families, great house leadership is not simply handed down to the children. In these powerful families, there are easily dozens of relatives within just a single generation alone. With so many rivals around, at least one relative is usually way stronger than the direct heir. Statistically, one of them is almost always more powerful than the head's own child. But in this case, Mesa is a total monster who was born with the greatest talent imaginable. Apparently, after her magic power finally awakened, Mesa mastered every single form of combat magic in just 10 years, securing the house's full support. She is only 21, but she is already as strong as the core members of the family. Tran wonders out loud if the house performed a funeral rite to give her that much strength so young. Eyes actually confirms this, explaining that when their granduncle passed away, Mesa literally devoured all of his remaining magic power. Other relatives received small portions, but she was the one who claimed the lion's share. Now we see how these great houses stay dominant. Shortly after, they arrive at the Deccan Plains. This is the central territory and the absolute heart of the Arabian lands. Eyes then leads Tran to the Berg Zavalin estate, which is a massive castle that looks like a fortress. They finally head inside. Eyes is immediately greeted by his mother, and the two of them dive into a massive hug. Eyes starts crying like a baby, and Tran honestly cannot believe this guy is 43 years old. Right on cue, Eyes' father steps out and scolds him for being so informal with his mother. Tran still cannot wrap his head around the fact that a fully grown man is acting like a spoiled child. Eyes snaps out of it and introduces Tran to his parents as a new friend. He mentions that Tran is a trusted ally from the south. He tells them Tran saved his life during a crisis, and he never would have made it back alive. His mother is stunned. The pilgrimage route is supposed to be safe, so she immediately asks Eyes what on earth happened. Eyes reveals the truth. They were actually ambushed by dark elf wraith sorcerers. The woman instantly loses it. She cannot believe those elves had the guts to target her child on their own home turf. She starts yelling about raising a whole army to hunt them down, but her husband intervenes. He urges her to keep her composure because she is the head and everyone is watching them. Then the man turns to Tran and asks which house he belongs to. Tran's answer, he cannot say. He is taken aback. Tran rephrases, explaining that his mother was a commoner and he does not even know who his father was. Eyes is completely shocked by this reveal and yells at Tran for never mentioning it before. Tran just shrugs it off, saying his lineage is not exactly something worth bragging about. Eyes' mother speaks up. She assures Tran that he will be properly rewarded for keeping her son alive. However, she lets him know that offering him a room inside the house is going to be difficult. Instead, she promises to arrange the absolute best inn in the city just for him. Eyes immediately protests. Why can't they host the man who literally saved his life right here? His mother says that normally this would not be a problem. But right now, there is an extremely important guest currently staying with them. No matter the situation, she cannot bring a stranger of unknown origin into the house right now. They're wrapping things up when a woman's voice suddenly rings out. She cuts through the tension, telling the lady there's zero reason to worry about her. After all, she's certain Eyes' savior is not here to play the part of an assassin. Every head turns in her direction as a beautiful, frail-looking lady in a long gown makes her grand entrance. Eyes is visibly shaken the moment he sees her, calling out her name in complete shock. Mesa, what on earth is she doing at the house so unexpectedly? The moment Tran hears her name, he realizes that Mesa is the princess of Arabian that Eyes mentioned earlier. Still, he's taken aback by how weak and cold she appears. Eyes' mother explains that Mesa barely escaped an assassination by Zahar's thugs, so she is here seeking a safe haven. Isis is stunned to hear that an assassination actually struck. Especially at the main house, the most heavily fortified fortress in the entire region. Mesa replies that there's likely an insider involved, noting it's no secret the house has people with questionable loyalties. With that, she bids them farewell, exhausted and in desperate need of rest. Eyes' mother then turns and tells their maid Ina to lead Tran to their second-best guest room immediately. One luxurious, restful night in a massive room later. Tran wakes up early to catch a peaceful morning stroll through the main hall. He bumps into Eyes, who isn't at all surprised to see him up, knowing Tran's early habits well. Eyes asks what he's doing all alone in the hallway, and Tran points at a lamp he finds quite fascinating. Eyes shrugs it off, mentioning it's just a magic lantern he makes casually. He offers Tran one since the storage is overflowing with them. But Tran politely declines, making it clear he's really not interested in the gadgets. Suddenly, a blinding light bursts through the window, grabbing their attention in an instant. Eyes explains that the light is just Mesa practicing her powerful magic. Looking at that massive golden lightning in the distance, Tran asks if this is the Arabian bloodline's magic, and Eyes confirms it's the power of the Storm bloodline. Eyes admits he has never hated his own lineage. But even he has to admit Mesa is basically becoming a literal god. Now, Tran's curious just how powerful the next Arabian leader will actually be. Eyes offers to take him to watch her train, and Tran admits he's interested. But he doesn't think it's a good idea for a suspicious outsider like him to wander so close. Eyes scoffs, saying it's fine since he'll personally vouch that Tran isn't a threat. Honestly, he is even curious to know which one of them is actually stronger. Right then, Tran realizes this was Eyes' main reason for bringing him along. Eyes admits he's been holding a grudge for years and would give anything to see Mesa humbled and frustrated just for once. Eyes brings Tran over to where she's training, and Tran introduces himself properly. Mesa asks the two of them why they've interrupted her, so Eyes claims they've come to join in. He brings up their old training days, but Mesa isn't having any of it. She shuts him down, recalling how he ran off crying after she mastered his spells in only 2 tries. Tran nearly chokes on a laugh, but manages to keep it together. Eyes quickly tries to change the subject, boasting to Mesa that out of everyone he's met, Tran's magic talent is second to none. He then suggests they have an official duel. As soon as Mesa hears that, she completely loses her cool. Magic power explodes from her, warping the sky and releasing a terrifying aura that rattles Tran to his core. Once she is finished flexing her power, Tran is left standing there, drenched in cold sweat and pure shock. Mesa makes it crystal clear, compared to her, he is basically no match whatsoever. Tran is speechless, so Eyes steps in, telling Mesa that while she is definitely superior in raw mana, he has to agree with her there. However, Eyes points out that when it comes to the sheer talent for learning magic, Tran is a rare breed. He claims Tran picks up magic faster than anyone he has ever seen, which really pokes at Mesa's massive ego. Naturally, Mesa is annoyed. She suggests they see what he is actually made of since Eyes won't stop bragging. Tran proposes a challenge. Each shows off a spell the other doesn't know. First one to replicate it wins. Eyes thinks it is a brilliant idea, and Mesa, she is more than happy to play along. But she is feeling generous, so she promises to leave out her unique bloodline magic just to keep things fair. Mesa makes the first move, giving the ground a sharp, sudden stomp with her foot. Suddenly, massive vines erupt from the earth, surrounding the area and even snatching Eyes right out of thin air. She hoists him high up, explaining that her specialty is the creation and absolute manipulation of plant life. She looks at Tran and asks if he can pull off the same trick. Eyes, already getting motion sick, begs her to let him down, but she is not having it. Mesa refuses, telling him to just enjoy the view because watching him struggle is way too much fun. Tran takes a second, then crouches down to place his hand firmly on the dirt. He realizes that fire magic just triggers the burning effect, while water magic pulls moisture from the air. It is all about following the natural principles of the world around him. Tran utters a single command, grow. He believes that even withering vines follow the same basic logic. The magic's real secret is just accelerating the growth of seeds already buried deep within the soil. In short, it is not about creating something from nothing, it is about forcing things to grow. To everyone's surprise, vines burst from the ground, perfectly mimicking the exact spell Mesa just showed off. Eyes is blown away by the sight, while Mesa realizes he figured out the magic's nature just by his words. She asks if he has seen this before, but he says no. Reluctantly, she admits Eyes was right about him. She finally drops Eyes and tells Tran it is his turn to cast a spell for her. It is time for him to show her what he is really capable of doing. Tran hesitates. He knows using Zahar's bloodline magic would be a death sentence if they recognized it. Just then, an interesting thought hits him. He uses animal control to summon a small rat from a nearby bush. Mesa just smiles, wondering if this simple animal manipulation is really the best he can do. But Tran shakes his head. The rat isn't the magic, it's just the test subject. He grabs the creature and floods it with mana, causing it to rot instantly, which leaves Mesa horrified. After draining the life right out of the rodent, he drops it, casually saying he is done. Mesa doesn't think it looks too hard and decides she's going to give it a shot. She calls another rat and grabs it coldly as the poor thing squeals in absolute agony. She starts pumping her mana into it, trying to force the creature to decay just like he did. But it doesn't work. The rat just screams louder, desperately clinging to its life. Mesa is stumped. She is struggling to understand his trick, sensing it is something more than just basic magic. Even Eyes is creeped out, asking how he did that. Tran just shrugs, saying it was just an idea. But secretly, Tran is shocked that a high-tier family like the Arabians has no clue about this magic. Soon Tran urges. He tells Mesa to concede defeat, since things are clearly not going well for her. But Mesa screams at him to shut up because she is certain she can do this. She keeps pouring magic into the rat, desperate to make the creature decay. Here is how magic works. Causality is a complex puzzle. Is the phenomenon the wizard wants natural or completely forced? Being able to see the cause of magic is everything. That factor determines both your success rate and how much mana you actually burn. If your causality is lacking, there is a shortcut. You just pour in a massive flood of mana to make up for the inefficiency. This is exactly what Mesa is doing, burning so much mana that she finally gets the rat to rot. Eyes is shocked she pulled it off, but Tran knows what happens next. Mesa holds the rotting rat high. She looks absolutely wrecked, but still manages to brag about her success. But she can barely even stand. Before she knows it, she crashes to the floor, passing out. Eyes rushes over, begging her to wake up. Tran wonders if she collapsed because her mana tank hit 0. But he refuses to believe this was just a simple mana depletion. He believes she is only suffering from pure exhaustion, since the strength to reinforce her body has vanished. Tran quickly sees the issue. He scoops her up and asks Eyes for a healing mage nearby. Eyes panics, saying there isn't one. Tran tells her to bring water and salt to Mesa's room immediately. He's stunned. He is shocked by how light she is. It feels like carrying a baby lamb instead of a person. The truth is this. She was already at her limit, and that final mana drain finished her off. Soon, Mesa wakes up in her room with her aunt sitting beside her. The woman freaks out with relief the second Mesa opens her eyes. Dazed, Mesa asks Eyes' mother why she's there, hearing she collapsed during that training session with Tran. Her aunt asks if Tran hurt her, but Mesa can't even respond. The woman says they are holding Tran in the temple, under observation. Mesa snaps back instantly, shouting that none of this was Tran's fault. She reveals it was only her mistake and demands that everyone leave the room because her head is pounding. Before leaving, Aiza's mother tells her she made some soup and will leave it there, even if Mesa won't eat. She urges her to at least eat a little for her health. Mesa thanks her aunt and waits for everyone to leave the room. The moment she swallows a spoonful, the traumatizing memories hit her. She sees her mother and brother begging for her help, vivid and horrific. Unable to cope with the trauma, she smashes the soup on the floor. Mesa grips the sheets, clutching her head in absolute frustration. Meanwhile, deep inside the underground chambers of Hausberg, inside the temple of the limping goddess, a knight named Haram is keeping a close watch over Tran. He tells Tran that the doors and walls are solid muscle, trained for centuries without a single gap. Haram makes it clear that escaping the temple is out of the question for Tran. Tran just nods along, assuring the man he has zero interest in running. Haram keeps talking about the temple defenses, and honestly, you and I can see Tran thinks he is just bragging. Then Haram draws his sword and starts swinging with violent speed, leaving Tran wondering what the heck he is doing. He says he is just training and keeps his blade moving. Tran is completely stunned by the intensity, realizing that every single motion is perfectly optimized for the next strike. It makes him wonder if this is what peak physical efficiency actually looks like. Haram suddenly stops to stare, and a nervous Tran quickly apologizes for distracting his focus. But Haram just waves it off. He wasn't bothered. He walks right up to Tran and asks what he noticed about those movements. Tran is left baffled, like, what do you even say? He manages to say the moves looked cool, and surprisingly, that actually seems to impress the knight. Haram notes that most nobles think swordplay is pointless when you can just blast things with magic from afar. In his eyes, that's just an excuse for having a weak body. Their minds don't control their flesh, so they cheat. Tran argues that unless you have a strength bloodline, magic is usually more efficient. He is not exactly wrong here. But after seeing real war, he knows there are moments you can't run from, moments where magic alone just isn't enough to survive. Haram casually hands over his own sword, but Tran quickly reminds him that giving a weapon to a suspicious prisoner is a pretty weird move. Haram doesn't care. To him, that blade is nothing more than a heavy iron bar right now. He explains that the wielder's body is what actually transforms a hunk of metal into a sword. And with how weak Tran looks, yeah, he couldn't even leave a scratch on the man. Looking closely at the blade, Tran realizes the knight is right. This thing is heavy. Still, Tran decides to give it a shot. The second he takes a combat stance, he instinctively floods his entire body and the blade with mana. It is just a habit at this point. Haram immediately barks at him to stop. You are doing it all wrong. Mana is the last thing you should be using. Haram steps in to fix Tran's form, lecturing him on every single detail of how a body should actually move. Tran takes it all in, and Haram tells him to do 10 reps while focusing on his breathing. As he starts the drill, Haram is actually impressed. He tells him he has a fine vessel and should push his physical limits until he is bone dry. Wizards think mana is everything, but to a master like Haram, it is just a bunch of fancy parlor tricks. Most people only use the bare minimum of what their bodies can do. He explains that a properly trained warrior can absolutely tear through battlefield without needing a single drop of mana. That is the difference he needs to understand. Tran promises to keep that in mind and keep swinging, determined to follow every bit of the knight's instructions. Moments later, Aiza's mother walks in. She actually apologizes for how she treated him earlier. Talk about a surprise. Tran tells her not to worry about it. He is just glad to hear that Mesa is finally safe. The woman mentions that Mesa wants to say sorry in person, which is pretty fair. She asks if he has a moment to spare, and honestly, he probably does. A bit later, Tran meets with Mesa. She apologizes for causing so much trouble, knowing he was locked in the temple just because of her. Mesa thinks he really went overboard. But Tran tells her it was no big deal. Honestly, he is just relieved she made it out in one piece. She cannot help but ask about that terrifying rot magic he used earlier. Was it some secret bloodline ability? The amount of mana it took was just insane. She even wonders if he is lying. But Tran shakes his head. He claims she could pull it off too, as long as she knows the trick. Mesa gets the hint. A powerful technique like that is never taught for free. Still, she pushes back. Without proof, everyone is going to assume it is just some hidden bloodline trait. Tran just shrugs. Winning or losing, it does not really matter to him at all. Mesa is not having it. If he throws the fight, it just makes her look terrible. So, she decides to step up with a trade. Here is the deal. If he explains his magic secret, she will teach him a powerful secret art from the Arabian family in exchange. Since she is offering something that good, Tran finally agrees to the deal. A bit later, Tran lays it all out. She is shocked to find out it is actually rooted in bioenhancement. He is basically using invisible microorganisms. Tran confirms the theory, and she decides to give it a shot. Surprisingly, it works perfectly. She realizes her own magic was lacking simply because she did not understand this one basic principle. Mesa finally admits that she lost this round. But she begs Tran to tell Eyes it was a draw. She just cannot stand the thought of Eyes getting cocky. Since he shared his secret, Mesa knows she has to pay him back as promised. She grabs a comb from her shelf and starts running it through her hair to demonstrate something. After a few strokes, she shows him how the friction makes objects pull toward each other like magic. Right as she is about to name it, Tran cuts her off. Oh, that is just static electricity. Mesa is absolutely floored that he already knew that. She groans in pure frustration. This was supposed to be one of their most profound secret arts. Now she has to think even harder. She needs to find something truly unique to repay him, something he definitely does not know. Mesa. She suggests they train together from now on until she comes up with a better way to settle the debt. She makes sure to point out this is purely about the debt, not because she actually wanted a partner. Tran goes along with it, and he suggests they start meeting in the garden every evening beginning the next day. Later that night, the family sits down for a feast so insane that even Eyes is stunned. He did not even get a meal this good for his birthday. He jokes that looking at this table, you would think the head of the Arabian house himself was visiting them. Tran knows it too. There is no way this is just some regular dinner for the family. Eyes' mother then brings up the magic tool that Eyes promised to craft specifically for Tran. She asks if he has anything particular in mind for what it should do. Tran tells her he is looking for something focused on pure defense. Hurting others with magic is easy, but keeping yourself safe, that is the real challenge. If he can get it, he wants something that will automatically protect him from sudden surprise attacks. Eyes promises that won't be an issue. He has actually crafted gear like that plenty of times before. The catch is, he does not have anything ready right now. That is when Eyes' brother offers to handle the request himself. He just finished a big commission for the main house, so he finally has some free time on his hands. So the lady of the house asks, how exactly does he plan? Tran explains that for constant protection, they need something he can wear at all times. No surprises, just pure safety. His plan, embedding mana directly into jewelry. We're talking rings and everything. Earrings, necklaces, whatever it takes to channel that legendary guardian bloodline power and turn it into an absolute shield. She's on board with that, but now she needs to know the deadline. Tran's answer, give him 1 month to get it done. Then Eyes' dad starts bragging. Apparently, the brother, Milo, is some top-tier wizard, only second to the old man himself. Praising Milo endlessly. Poor Eyes gets totally ignored. Meanwhile, Tran tries to stay humble, saying this whole setup feels way too over the top. But Mom shuts that down immediately. To her, her son's life is priceless. No gift is ever too much. So she makes it official. For the next month, Tran is their honored guest, no arguments. He'd better get comfortable real quick. Fast forward, morning. Tran and Eyes are out exploring when Eyes drops a truth bomb. His mom is already a huge fan of Tran. She's not just impressed by his raw magic talent, it's his work ethic, the fact that he never skips a single training session. Tran hears all this praise and starts connecting the dots. Something's up here. He calls it out. She's definitely trying to recruit him into the family. Eyes just laughs. Step 1, gifts to create debt. Step 2, introduce a beautiful girl as temptation. Classic. Believe it or not, half the experts in their house got caught this way. Tran realizes this is trouble. It's a lot to process, but Eyes tells him not to sweat it. He shouldn't worry. This magic tool, it's just a nice gesture to win a bit of his favor. There's no secret marriage contract waiting. Even if he takes the tool, he's still a free man. Probably. Plus, his mom isn't totally shameless. Well, not about this at least. Eyes asks about his schedule, and Tran mentions his evening training with Mesa. He's got some time to kill until then. Tran asks if something's up. Since he's free all day, Eyes sees a golden opportunity. They've got hours to burn, and Eyes isn't going to waste them. He drags Tran along for a city patrol instead. Zavalane might not be the big capital, but trust me, there's plenty of fun here. When asked if he was just going to rot in his room until training, Tran admits, yeah, exactly that. Eyes says no. He literally grabs Tran and drags him away. No choice, no arguments, just forced fun. They hit the whole city. Casinos, crowded spots, you name it, they're there. The food market was great, but then, the theater house. Inside, Tran spots a movie poster on the wall. He freezes. No way. He definitely knows that face on the screen. It's Korn. Now he's actually curious, so he grabs a seat for the show. Turns out the play is all about Korn being this legendary, unbeatable warrior king. After the credits roll, Eyes asks what he thought. Tran has to admit it was actually pretty solid. Thinking back on everything the play showed him, Tran realizes Korn is a beast, but the guy's humility, absolutely on another level. Next time they meet, he's definitely going to ask if those crazy stories were actually true or not. Next morning, Tran wakes up to find Haram just standing there, staring at him. Haram asks how he slept. Tran's fine, but he's dying to know why this guy is in his room. Haram noticed his potential yesterday. Now he's calling him out. Time to follow him, training starts right now, no excuses. He makes it clear that, look, muscles do not grow by lounging around. To get strong, you have to walk through hell. Haram asks Tran if he is ready for the challenge, and Tran confidently says he is all in. Our main character knows this beats playing around any day, but just as they are starting, Eyes barged in, excitedly talking about some play he wanted everyone to go see that afternoon. Then he spots his uncle standing there, and his entire body just freezes in place. Haram casually mentions they are starting a training session and asks if Eyes wants to join them. Without a single word, Eyes immediately spins around and bolts in the opposite direction. Tran is left completely confused, staring after the guy like he has totally lost his mind or something. However, the mystery is solved pretty quickly once the actual training begins, and it is absolute torture. Tran is forced into weighted push-ups, his body trembling as he nearly collapses from the sheer agony. But Haram is a total drill sergeant and refuses to let him stop for even a second. After an eternity of pain, Haram finally gives the signal to stop, and Tran literally faceplants into the dirt in exhaustion. Haram asks if he is tired, and Tran can barely choke out a yes through his panting. The master points out that being a wizard is vital because a normal body just rots away. But a wizard uses mana as fuel, keeping their physical form in peak condition at all times. While Tran tries to process this, Haram tells him to start another set because he is clearly rested enough. Tran absolutely panics, trying to explain to this beast of a man that his legs are still jelly. But Haram is stone cold and will not hear any excuses. Over the next few days, Tran finds himself training with Haram in the morning while training with Mesa in the evening. Before he even realizes it, 3 full weeks have flown by in a blur. During practice, Tran vents his frustration about his lightning attacks. They just will not fly in a straight line. He figures it is just because he is not a native from Arabian, which makes sense. But Mesa shuts that down, admitting she has never actually tried to aim her lightning attacks like that either. They are right in the middle of this chat when a messenger suddenly arrives, looking for Mesa. She is annoyed, demanding to know why he is bothering her despite her strict orders for privacy. The messenger trembles, then explains that the head of the house has summoned her immediately, making Mesa even more suspicious. She warns him that if this is for some pointless reason, he is going to regret it. The news is grim. Dark elves are rampaging in the south, and 3 cities have already been destroyed. The main house is putting together an elite expedition force to deal with the threat. And the moment Tran hears those words, it clicks. The dark elves have finally decided to make their move on the world. Mesa does not hesitate, telling the messenger to report back that she will be returning soon. Once the messenger leaves, she turns to Tran and tells him that she has to head out. But first, she needs to settle the debt for that corruption magic lesson Tran gave her earlier. She asks him if he knows about the electricity flowing inside the human body, leaving him stunned. Mesa is actually relieved he is clueless, making her secret lesson feel even more valuable. She explains that what she is about to share is a highly guarded Arabian secret teaching. They will call things, even once she finishes showing him this unique perspective on how magic works. She breaks it down. Every time you see or feel something, tiny electrical sparks travel to your brain. When your eyes see something, those signals race from your pupils straight to your mind. It is the same for your nose. Smells are just signals being sent to the brain. It is through this electricity. You and I know the brain processes sensation by sending electrical signals to command every movement. Tran is honestly confused. But he is certain there is logic here, since the library materials all shared the same foundation. He wants to believe this is just another natural law passed down through the Arabian line. Mesa then asks what would happen if he uses magic to accelerate that internal electricity. He replies that his perception and reaction speed would reach a whole new level. Mesa grins, telling Tran he should be a professor since he is clearly pretty sharp. Without wasting a second, she decides to demonstrate the magic herself. She is curious to see just how quickly Tran can learn. Moments later, Tran tries the technique, focusing on the feeling of electricity pulsing through his body. Once it clicks, he decides to push those lightning signals even faster through his internal pathways. And before he knows it, his senses sharpen to a degree he has never experienced. Even Mesa's speech starts to drag in slow motion within his presence. Tran is blown away by the magic, but suddenly, a sharp pain hits his head as Mesa confirms his success. However, he is now suffering from the side effects of using massive amounts of mana without control. Mesa warns him about the headache, explaining it is just a hurdle he has to clear first. Once he masters the feeling, though, he will be able to maintain this state easily. Tran realizes that the gift Mesa gave him is worth far more than his own. Mesa leaps into the air, calling this a personal investment since it seems Tran has some genuine talent. She tells him that she will collect on everything he owes once he reaches his full potential, before flying off in style. Later on, join me as Tran and Eyes head to Morgan's Central City for the expedition force farewell. They spot Mesa among the soldiers, and Eyes immediately starts waving like a madman to his cousin. His father has to grab his hand, telling him to finally behave like a proper noble. Moments later, an announcement rings out that the house head is arriving, and a heavy silence falls everywhere. That is when Tran catches sight of the legendary battle approaching from the distance. He looks like a battered old man, his skin covered in countless deep scars. Tran whispers to Eyes, noting how pale Battle looks and wondering if the man is sick. Aziz mentions rumors of a legendary clash with the Zahar house head that left him broken. However, that was ages ago, and Eyes figures the man is simply feeling the weight of time. Battle steps onto the stage and raises his hand, causing storm clouds to instantly swarm the sky. He addresses the troops while his eyes burn with an intense light. Lightning ravages the heavens, striking fear into the crowd as they chant Arabian's name. Tran stands there in absolute shock, finally seeing the true power of the Arabian bloodline. He can't believe a man in that condition holds such terrifying power. Battle is still at the peak of magic that can reshape the world. Tran makes a silent promise that one day, he will reach that same level. Later, Tran receives his custom magic item, which turns out to be a simple bracelet. Milo explains that just by wearing it, Tran's physical durability will see a slight boost. And when he channels mana, this power surges even higher. He claims it will soon reach the level of a high-ranking guardian bloodline noble. But the mana drain is massive, so he's warned not to keep it active for long. Tran is absolutely floored by the gift, admitting that an item of this quality is rare even among the great houses. Just then, Aiza's mother asks Tran to join the family. He thanks her for the offer, saying it's incredibly generous, but he knows that staying behind would be far too difficult. The woman isn't shocked. Ai's already told her that Tran has too much to do to stay in one place. She apologizes for asking again, and Tran says he'll never forget the amazing way she's treated him. He promises that Ai's and the entire Berg family will be his friends forever. After this, Tran gets ready to leave and bumps into Haram, who hands him a dagger. Haram explains it's a magic tool, no crazy abilities, but it's sharp and incredibly durable. Tran accepts the gift with respect, addressing the man as his teacher. Haram smiles at that. Once he's gone, Ai's places a special cloak on Tran's shoulders. Tran asks what it is, and Ai's reminds him how much he liked their family's clothes. He mentions they don't get dirty easily, and can even repair small tears automatically. Ai's then hands over some shirts and pants too. Tran is completely overwhelmed. Ai's just laughs, telling Tran he's a true friend. He says Tran saved his life and taught him a lot about how a person should live. Ai's asks where he's going next, and Tran replies he just wants to keep heading east. Ai's hears this and gives him a serious warning. He's been there before and begs him not to take a ship if he can avoid it. He says the waves are terrifying. But Tran knows he has no choice. Beyond those waves lies Zahar's land, the Emerald Desert, a secret he can't tell Ai's. Ai's then urges Tran to survive and eventually come back. Tran simply says, okay. Now, you and I see him back on the road, realizing he's all alone again. Since he's alone, he decides to run. He dashes off at a blinding speed, flying past travelers who don't even see him. They only felt a strange presence whip past them. No one could even hope to catch him. After traveling for miles, Tran finally stops when his nose catches a scent that's all kinds of wrong. From the smell, he wants to believe it's just burning animal meat. So he decides to track it. Moments later, he finds the source and is left speechless. An entire village has been burned down. The villagers are tied to poles and set on fire without a bit of mercy. He wonders if it was bandits. There's no way the Dark Elves have the guts to come this far. He continues his search and soon picks up another scent coming from a cellar. He pulls open the door and, to his surprise, a young girl is hiding inside. The girl screams in terror. But Tran urges her to calm down, promising her that he's not an enemy. He says he's there to help, and that finally settles her nerves a little. Tran walks closer, gently asking her if she could tell him what happened at the village. She whispers about a wizard. But before she can finish her sentence, her lights go out. Tran catches her and looking closer. He sees her condition isn't actually critical. She just passed out from pure exhaustion after being trapped in that dark basement for so long. Tran moves the girl to safety first, but by the time he gets back to the surface, he finds himself surrounded by a mysterious force led by a fierce lady. She levels an ice bow at him, screaming that he is a cold-blooded murderer. Honestly, this is one massive, dangerous case of a total misunderstanding. The lady screams at Tran, asking if those tied-up corpses weren't enough, or if he's trying to kidnap children now, too. Her second-in-command warns him not to move, while Tran desperately tries to explain the situation. The guy loses his cool and hurls a massive fire spear right at Tran. His leader loses it, yelling at him for being stupid since Tran is holding a child. The man apologizes, claiming he just got too twitchy, and that led to the accidental attack. But when the dust clears, Tran is untouched thanks to the bracelet Milo made him. The wizards are floored. There is not a single scratch on the guy. The lady wonders what he used, assuming it must be some kind of bloodline ability. Tran finally speaks up. He tells the group he didn't attack this village, trying to clear the air. However, he warns them that if they strike again, he will not be holding back. The lady takes a moment to process everything. She admits there is no reason for the real killer to just hang around here. Plus, sparing one child after such a brutal massacre just doesn't add up. She introduces herself as Bon, then asks for Tran's name in return. Bison then tells Tran that she needs a solid way to trust him, even if the evidence suggests he's innocent. Tran tells them to just ask the girl once she wakes up since she saw the real culprit. Bison is totally stunned. She never expected the kid to have seen the killer they call the burner. Tran asks for more details, and Bison breaks it down, explaining that the burner is a total psycho wizard who torched the entire village. For the past few months, this monster has been hitting remote villages, binding people, and burning them alive. Since nobody ever survives the attacks, no one even knows if they are male or female. The only name the world has for this nightmare is the burner. Later, the girl wakes up and describes the killer in a red cloak with a bearded face. In fact, she says he looks as rough as a common woodcutter. After hearing her story, Bon and her squad apologize for jumping to the wrong conclusion. Tran remembers what Midden said about nobles, whose egos often get ahead of their common sense. He tells Bon he's not offended because she was just worried about the girl's safety. Then Tran asks if they're here to hunt the burner, and she says yes. She mentions that now that they finally have a solid description, she is confident that they can finally take him down. Apparently, they have a natural-born tracker, and Tran asks if they are from House Zahar. He also wonders what she is doing in Arabian territory, but Bison quickly says she's from House Karina. Turns out she's from Avacha, and these guys are her friends, basically vassals serving her noble house. Bon drops a bombshell. The tracker, Asha, descends from an ancient line of ancestors who mixed with Zahar noble blood. But their bloodline manifested weakly. This makes Asha great at search magic. But she's terrible at concealment. That's why the house labels her kind as part of the primordial bloodline. Bison presents a formal request to Tran. Can he help them hunt down the burner? Bison promises Tran the entire bounty and even yields her share of mana. For her, keeping her noble reputation clean is far more important than any reward. Tran wants to know just how strong this burner guy actually is. Bison is pretty sure he's a wizard at the noble level. Apparently, in one village he raided, he slaughtered every single knight who stood in his way. He wiped them out completely. Tran is surprised, but he's also thinking something else. He knows low-rank monsters can't help him level up anymore. This guy, he's the perfect opponent to push his growth. And so, he agrees to help them. Before heading out, they stop at the nearest village. Tran brings the girl to a local orphanage. He hands the owner a heavy bag of money, enough to support her until she is fully grown. The man promises he will do everything he can to raise her well. Tran gives him a bone-chilling stare and says he will be back in a few years to check on her. That look is enough to terrify the man. He knows better than to even think about messing this up. Once they are ready, Asha taps into her power and begins tracking the burner. She leads the way. Later, Tran asks her what exactly she is picking up on while she tracks. Asha says they first found male footprints. By the time they reached the main road, the smell of ash was everywhere. If he has not changed his clothes, that ash smell will lead them straight to him. Tran is impressed. Seeing her work proves she is a total professional at what she does. Basically, she could not track him before because his gender was a mystery. Suddenly, Asha shouts that she has found the culprit and dashes off. The rest of the team has to scramble to catch up. Shortly after, they reach a cave entrance. Bon tells Tran to take the front with her while the others follow behind. Bison uses magic to light their path as they venture deeper into the dark cavern. Bison asks if anyone is there. Asha confirms there is exactly one person waiting at the very end. After walking for a bit, they finally hit the back of the cave and find the burner. He looks exactly like the man the girl described to them. Asha confirms it is him. She can smell the evidence all over him. Bon levels her bow at him, asking if he is the one who has been slaughtering the nearby villagers. The burner acts helpless, but it is a trap. Suddenly, he unleashes a devastating fire spell that fills the entire cave. The blast is so powerful, it knocks everyone behind Tran right off their feet. But Tran and Bison do not even flinch. The burner is shocked to his core. Bon seizes the moment, burying an arrow deep into the burner's leg. He crashes to the ground, screaming in agony. Out of nowhere, the burner pulls a shocker, conjuring massive clay arms with earth magic. Tran is caught off guard. He totally expected a fire specialist based on the guy's bloodline. Those massive hands strike fast, but Tran narrowly leaps away before they can crush him. The second he sees a clear opening on the burner, he lashes out with his weapon sleeve, cleanly severing the guy's arm in a blink. To finish things off, Tran surges lightning magic through him, leaving the burner screaming in pure agony as he collapses. Bison finally claws her way out of the earth trap and asks Tran if the enemy is defeated. He confirms the kill. He tells her to go check the others while he handles the rest of this mess. Tran scatters a handful of vine seeds onto the dirt. Using his magic, he forces them to sprout and bind the burner tightly. He seals the guy's eyes, legs, and hands completely before finally waking him back up. The burner gasps awake and instantly tries to stir up his magic again. But Tran presses a cold dagger to his throat, warning him that one move means death. The villain settles down, demanding to know who they are and how they found his hideout. Bon says they have their ways, but she needs to know, is he the real burner? He stays silent, so an annoyed Tran drives the blade into his thigh, making him howl in pure agony. Tran demands an answer. Why has he been burning innocent villagers alive? He actually claims God told him to. He claims that burning the flesh and souls of sinners is the only way to truly reach the divine. Everyone is stunned as he rambles on, claiming God himself taught him the secret way to acquire ancient bloodline power. He claims that a few more human sacrifices, and he would have finally unlocked the full pyromaniac bloodline. Bison calls him insane for thinking a natural, born bloodline could ever be stolen like that. Then Tran recalls Madden's words about commoners stealing power from monsters, something he has actually seen other wizards achieve before. The burner keeps on rambling about how he only needed one more sacrifice to finally claim that massive pyromaniac power for himself. Tran realizes this guy is not just some rambling lunatic. He might have actually stumbled upon one of the world's darkest secrets. Without a second thought, Tran slashes the guy's throat, ending his life right then and there. The knights nearly lose their lunch at the sight, but Bon just asks what their problem is. They argue that killing a bound, defenseless prisoner feels wrong, no matter what he did. Bison tells them to stop talking trash, pointing out they would all be dead in this cave if the fight had gone differently. So yeah, she has zero sympathy for a monster like him. Besides, Bon points out that this monster killed so many innocent people that no amount of pain could ever be enough for justice. Tran picks up the burner's journal, and just by glancing at the first page, he knows he has found more than enough proof of the guy's identity. As Tran flips the pages, he is completely blown away. The book is filled with complex combination formulas that even he has never seen before. He wonders if that voice in the guy's head revealed these too. Right then, Bon calls out to Tran, saying it is finally time to absorb the burner's mana. The entire group gathers to begin absorbing the burner's mana. Later on, Bison receives a formal award from her family for eliminating the burner. Bison lets Tran know they plan to travel for a while and hunt more monsters. Bison turns to Tran, curious about his next move. After handing over the payment, Tran confirms he is setting a course for Avacha. She reminds him of her warning, and he promises that he won't be out there blabbing their secrets to anyone. Loose lips cause total chaos, and honestly, the world just isn't ready for this truth, even if it's fake. After they part ways, Tran realizes there is no reason to tell her that they're still lacking any real, definitive proof. Trekking across the desolate, dusty wasteland, he realizes fire magic is weirdly suppressed in this zone, but the water elements, they're overflowing with massive amounts of raw power. This is the sign he is close. Before long, the gates of Avacha finally appear. Tran steps into a local inn, overhearing a salty captain grumbling about the nightmare that is crossing Enril. No joke. Last time out, pirates riddled his hull with so many holes it basically became a sponge. The captain is convinced that if this keeps up, he'll be paying out for coffins and funerals instead of sailors' wages. Man, what he wouldn't give to have a high-tier, skilled knight watching their backs right now. Right on cue. Tran walks right up and asks if he's Enril-bound. The captain says they leave tomorrow, but warns that space is extremely tight. The ship is packed, there is zero room for extra cargo. He explains that taking on another body means tossing out a barrel of good booze, which goes against his sacred principles. But then, Tran lays a hand on the captain's drink and instantly freezes the liquid solid. The captain looks on in absolute, wide-eyed shock. The surrounding sailors are just as stunned, looking like they've seen a ghost. Everyone's thinking the same thing. What's a powerhouse knight doing in a dump like this? Tran tells the captain to just speak normally. After all, he is the one here asking the man for a job. The captain composes himself, squinting as he asks what brought a guy like him here. Straight to the point, Tran wants a spot on that ship heading for the Enril Passage. He's not looking for a free ride, he's an employee. Not a guest. His blade will handle any pirates or Murok monsters. That is his ticket for the journey. The captain gives it to him straight. The ship is a total mess, and they definitely can't offer a room fit for a night. Tran doesn't care about the gold or the bad conditions. His only goal is reaching the harsh sands of the Enril Desert. With that settled, the captain isn't about to say no. He happily welcomes Tran to the crew. Meanwhile, far away, the expedition forces are locked in a brutal clash against the elves. One elite knight is tearing through them like paper, but the tide is turning fast. Just as he's about to be crushed, Mesa drops in from the skies like a goddess. She unleashes a massive lightning strike, turning the elven attackers into literal roasted meat. The knight is grateful for the save, but Mesa just points back to the unit, ordering him to move out now. Right then, Kadram Arabian, her uncle and the squad's vice-captain, makes his way over. He pulls up, checking to see if she's held together. She tells him she's perfectly fine, but Kadram begs her to stay safe since her life is worth more than 1,000 regular knights. Mesa brushes it off. She's focused on the front lines and the progress of this war. Kadram admits they are actually making some solid progress. The area is almost theirs, but those hidden tunnels, they're still missing. Mesa tells him to call her the moment they find them. She's handling that operation personally. With those words, Mesa bolts off without a second thought. Kadram just groans. His brother really spoiled that girl too much, didn't he? He's terrified that Mesa is heading down the same dark path as her brother and mother before her. Meanwhile, our main character, Tran, leans over the railing, wondering how on earth he'll find any leads once they dock in the land of Zahar. Since his father's status is a complete mystery, he is walking into Zahar completely blind to whatever dangers might be lurking there for him. All he's got are a few family heirlooms and a single portrait of his mother's face. He can't help but wonder, how long will it take to find her with nothing but these trinkets? Soon enough, the captain appears behind him, curious about what has got the young man looking so incredibly lost in thought. Tran just brushes it off, claiming he is simply overwhelmed by how massive the ocean really is. The captain nods along, checking in to see if Tran is struggling with any seasickness yet. Apparently, land folks usually get nauseous just by staring at that never-ending horizon for too long. Tran promises he is doing great. The captain smiles, mentioning he's heard all about Tran's mission to master the seas. Tran explains that he's just hungry for knowledge, and honestly, everything he's learned so far has been pretty fascinating. But suddenly, the dinner bell rings out. Time for everyone to grab a bite before jumping back to work. Over dinner, the chef warns Tran that the food's mediocre, but that pickled cabbage, that's the real MVP. It's the only thing keeping them from dying of gum disease. Tran is just confused. Gum disease? What's that? The chef explains it simply: your gums bleed and then, well, you're dead. Pretty grim. But if you eat sour stuff, you'll be just fine. Since fruit rots in days, pickled cabbage is their best bet. Even if it tastes like garbage, Tran is absolutely floored. How on earth does this old man know all this? The cook shrugs. Someone must have figured it out a long time ago, and the secret just got passed down. He adds that back in the day, people actually used to eat mirepoix raw. Gross. Suddenly, the alarm blares. There's an unknown ship closing in fast at 2 o'clock. The lookout scans the horizon, desperately trying to see if they're about to face a pirate ship. No flags. Yeah, that's all the proof the chef needs. They've got pirates on their tail. The old man's fuming. Why do these guys always show up when things are finally going smooth? No more talk. The captain bellows for every sailor to prep for combat immediately. The cook asks if they're gonna run, but the captain knows better. That pirate ship is way faster. They would be caught eventually anyway. Might as well fight it out. The captain turns to Tran, checking if he's ready for this. Tran gives him a confident nod. As long as there aren't any high-level knights or nobles on that boat, this shouldn't be an issue. Bold move. The captain orders them to steer straight into the pirates. They're taking the fight to them. The crew's already cheering for Tran, even though they haven't actually seen him in action yet. Seconds later, the pirate ship pulls alongside, and they start screaming for everyone to surrender if they want to live. Tran looks at the cook. Is that true? The old man scoffs. If losing your legs and being tossed overboard counts as mercy, then yeah. Then they're being totally honest. Hearing that's enough, Tran launches himself straight onto the pirate's deck. You and I are about to watch these pirates realize they've picked the wrong target. Tran pulls water from the deep, freezing it into spears. Their leader panics, screaming at his crew to take this monster out right now. But for Tran, it's already over. These villains were marked for death long ago. No hesitation. He launches the spears, shredding through flesh while the boss keeps yelling. He desperately tries to rally his men, but it's already too late. Several pirates are dead before they can blink. Still, the leader thinks numbers can actually save them here. He orders a full swarm. It's either kill Tran or end up dead. They surround him, hoping a synchronized strike might actually work. Tran just draws more ocean water, forging a razor-sharp ice blade. The first attacker loses a hand, then his head, gone in a flash. Despite the brutality, the remaining pirates charge with nothing but blind desperation. They all charge toward him, lunging at him with their swords. But Tran parries every strike before disarming them like they are children. Their defenses are open, so he ends them. One gets close, he is split vertically in seconds. He impales another with a pole, looking completely and utterly bored. A close call? Nope, just a simple leap. He dodges, then extends his blade to reach even further out. One sweep, multiple heads fly. Suddenly, a pirate from the floor crawls up and grabs onto Tran. Two more lunge forward. Surprise, their weaponry can't even scratch his skin. While they're processing that reality, he stabs right through his captor. He severs their hands and carves the rest into bloody pieces. Now Tran goes hunting, collecting heads one after another like trophies. Severed heads fly, while blood soaks every inch of the ship. Screams echo across the water as he sends them to meet their ancestors. By the time he's finished, only pure carnage remains behind. The main ship anchors to the wreck to investigate the mess. The crew is left in total shock. They never expected him to solo the entire pirate ship. The captain jokes that Tran isn't leaving any fun for them. They cheer him while insulting the dead pirates, seeing just how bloodied Tran has become, suggesting that he go see a physician. But Tran insists there's no need, since he isn't actually hurt anywhere at all. It's not his blood. After cleaning up, he gets the formal report. It turns out we're looking at a merchant vessel that vanished years ago. The pirates had snatched the vessel and slapped on a fresh coat of paint for their own use. Which, let's be honest, is exactly how these guys operate. Tran turns to the captain, wondering what the next move is. And the captain reminds him that since he ended the battle with his own hands, this massive ship now officially belongs to Tran. He's a ship owner now, and yeah, Tran is just as shocked as we are. Tran asks what standard procedure is when you suddenly inherit a giant boat. And the captain admits there are a few options. He could sail back to Abacha, return the boat to its owners, and hope for a small reward after a whole lot of bowing. But the mountain of paperwork and dealing with annoying bureaucrats would waste months of his time. Another choice, head straight to the Emerald Desert and find a buyer there. But if you ask the captain, selling it at the Northern Sea Islands is the smartest play since they're heading that way. That's a place where everyone is absolutely desperate for a good ship. And the golden rule is always to sell to whoever needs it the most for max profit. Of course, moving a beast this size isn't a one-man job. He'll need to borrow some of the captain's crew. And if he's planning to use professional sailors, he better be ready to pay up, a fact the captain is sure Tran already knows. As they talk business, the crew finishes scrubbing the deck, tossing the dead pirates right into the dark ocean waves. The captain offers a deal. Give the crew 10% of the final profit, and they'll make sure the ship reaches its destination in one piece. But Tran has a better idea. He tells the captain to manage the entire sale for 20% of the cut. The captain doesn't even blink before agreeing. He already has a few connections in mind, and he's feeling pretty confident they're going to walk away with a massive pile of gold. Wait, things just got weird. A crewman bursts in with some crazy news they found a mermaid. The captain is losing it because he honestly cannot believe that after surviving a pirate raid, they might be under attack by sea people. The sailor quickly clears up the confusion, explaining that the pirates were actually keeping one locked up deep under the deck. Tran, the captain, and the old man head downstairs immediately to see for themselves. The captain offers Tran a first look, and he's not about to say no. While they walk, Tran gets straight to the point. Do these things actually sell for much? The old man explains that if they've found a female mermaid, those rich, bored lords on the mainland with too much gold will pay a fortune for her. They burst into the hold only to be hit with a wave of total disappointment. It's just a young male mermaid. Basically, the captain notes he's worth almost nothing. The wealthy elite have zero interest in males unless it's a legendary royal that can fully transform into a fish. The mermaid hears that and starts screaming at them, calling the captain an absolute idiot for daring to call him just a male. He claims his name is Armani, the 47th Prince of North Estadale, and he expects some serious respect from these lowly humans right now. Tran looks at the captain like, is this kid for real? And the captain just nods. But you and I have to wonder, is he telling the truth, or just bluffing to save his own skin from being sold? The captain leans in and asks Armani if he can shift into a fish. Armani says no, and the captain demands to know why. He claims it is impossible while he is tied up and trapped out of the water. He needs to be back in the ocean and in top shape to transform. The captain and Tran exchange looks. To them, it is obvious this mermaid is just looking for a way to escape. The captain asks Tran for his move, and Tran curiously asks if mermaids really do eat humans. The captain confirms it. Since Armani is not worth a dime as a slave, Tran decides to just finish him off. Tran knows it will be a total jackpot if Armani is actually telling the truth. But if they let him go and he just swims away, they will end up looking like absolute idiots. Tran reaches out, his palm glowing as he readies a lethal burst of ice magic. Armani screams in terror, demanding to know what the hell he is doing. Begging for his life, Armani swears he has never eaten a human and has zero plans to start now. Tran finally backs down, and Armani quickly promises that he will hand over a massive treasure if his life is spared. Tran stops cold and asks if Armani is actually serious about the gold. Armani nods. He is talking about ancient Freyan god relics that humans would kill for. Not long after, the ship finally reaches a dock. While the crew is celebrating their arrival, you and I know Tran has a much more dangerous plan in mind. He decides to grab a small boat and row out with Armani to where the treasure is hidden. Since the spot is close to where they are docked, Tran tells the others he will be back before the night is over. Just then, Tran chains up Armani's hands and tosses him into the rowboat so they can finally hunt down that gold. Armani asks if Tran is so scared of him escaping that he needs those heavy iron chains. He swears he is a prince, and a prince always keeps his word. Tran stays silent, so Armani asks once again if he will truly be released once the treasure is in sight. Tran gives the word and uses his magic to propel the boat forward. Armani warns Tran not to get mad if the haul is not what he expected. He explains that it is Freyan treasure, which is only considered valuable by the standards of land dwellers like Tran. Tran says he does not care about the details, he just wants Armani to lead the way. They arrive that night, and Tran strips off his shirt before diving deep into the dark water. He swims toward the underwater spot, but once he gets there, he gets a massive surprise. A giant snake is coiled and waiting for him right at the treasure. Regulations, then download and filter again, according to the content theme we have image files like this. I guarantee that these images are taken from YouTube's system, Google's system, and comply with Section 107, that is Google's Fair Use Content Reuse Law. I have researched and searched for all this content. Now I will make about the process that I create a video to publish on YouTube. The main software we use is CapCut. In the part with CapCut software first,